on, everybody? John here with you, alongside Alec Nava. It's a Tuesday, June 17, 2025. Had to refresh the YouTube feed a couple times, but we should be good to go here. The Chris Knoblauch squad, it's Connor McDavid, RNH, Corey Perry, Matthias Ekholm, Bouchard, Leon Draisaitl, Vander Kane, Kasperi Kapanen, Darnell Nurse, Brett Kulak, and Henrik, Jeff Skinner, Trent Frederick, Matthias Janmark, but Sully Pod, Coles, and Connor Brown. Stuart Skinner will be the goaltender of record. The Florida Panthers, head coached by Paul Maurice, there should be no changes. Alexander Barkov, Carter Verhaeghe, Sam Reinhart, Gustav Forslinger, and Ekblad, Sam Bennett, Evan Rodriguez, Matthew Tkachuk, Nico Nicola, and Seth Jones, and Tom Lundell, Eetu Luostarinen, Brad Marchand, Tomas Nosek, AJ Greer, John Gadjevich, with Nate Schmidt, Dmitry Kulikov, Sergei Bobrovsky will be the goaltender of record. Alec, we get to do this again. This is the fourth time for me across for the Stanley Cup Finals, but it's the rematch between these two as we've known. We're in Game 6 right now. Florida's got a chance to close it on home ice. Admittedly, last year, they had their family and friends come over from the 3-0 series lead. Then it didn't work out in those first two games, and they said it's going to be a business trip. Nobody joined. Eventually, they figured it out in Game 7. But you know what? I have to believe this time around, yes, the Oilers are fighting for their lives, but I think Florida will be ready to play on their home ice in a closeout scenario.
If you want to know how much time they've led for just north of 200 minutes of this finals. The Oilers have led for just north of 33 minutes in comparison between these two teams, John. The Panthers, they're looking to become the first team eliminating the same opponent in the finals since Montreal over Boston in 77 and 78. Now, we know the Panthers, they are a battle-tested team, and they're mentally tough. The intrigue here is that Edmonton going to Stuart Skinner, logically you'd think that is the correct decision. Chris Knoblauch knows his pedigree in elimination games. 3-1 in last year's finals in such games, 176 GAA, 935 save percentage. You expand it further, 5-2 for Skinner, 910 save percentage, and a 211 GAA. So Knoblauch knows what to expect from Skinner in elimination games, but you'd wonder, can he deliver again? The type of Skinner that they need to see is the Skinner that they got in the previous elimination games, where he was absolutely lights out. If there's any team that knows how dangerous the Oilers are when facing elimination, it's the Panthers. They're 3-2 this year in series-clinching games this postseason. Ironically, the same record entering Game 4 of last year's finals. And when we look at the Panthers in the first attempts to close out series this year, their opponents have found ways to stay alive. Tampa, that wasn't the case. But Toronto, Game 6, 2-0 shutout victory. Carolina, Game 4, Eastern Conference Final, 3-0 shutout victory. Granted, the Panthers won both series, but it creates an intrigue as to whether or not the Panthers will be winning at home ice, or if they're going to have to go all the way back to Edmonton, and the Oilers will, to quote Connor McDavid, dig the in.
Yeah, they're going to have to. And again, on Paul Maurice's side for the Cats, it's all about playing a 7-game series, drain their energy, hit them, make them have to feel everything, force them into a Game 7 to where they don't have any energy left. That's the main quote on their side. Why are the Cats in this position? Well, Alec talked about it a little bit, but it has a lot to do with the 10-3 mark on the road. A 61-31 goal differential. Yes, they're at home today, but they were able to carry that pace of play. A 39% conversion on the power play and a penalty kill that operates at 87.5 on the road. When you have roughly 126% output, when 100 is considered pretty good, 126 is way above elite. That's past the point of absurdity. A little bit of a reset from Game 5. Marchand scores twice off the tie from center ice for Lundell. And then he gets a chip from Luostarinen and destroys Bowman after a beautiful lift. He ties up the stick, scores 5-hole. It's one of the best goals you're ever going to see, not only in this Stanley Cup Finals, but it's going to be etched in history. It was a 2-0 lead after one for the Cats. Bennett at his 15th after Tkachuk's shot was initially blocked. Reinhart and Luostarinen also added a goal. McDavid got his first of the Stanley Cup Finals. Pickard took the loss as he stopped 14 of 18. Bobrovsky only had to stop 19 of 21. But as Alec and I mentioned, calling through that Game 5, we can't stress enough that there was a 20 to 25-minute segment in which there was construction barrels all over the ice. Edmonton had to chip the puck in. They really didn't have anywhere to go. You had that 1-3-1 to perfection. There was no space on the blue line, and they had to dictate whatever that they wanted to do. Now, Corey Perry, admittedly, in this game on the start, says the Oilers need a quick start, and they have to dictate the pace if they're going to win this Game 6 and force a Game 7. And I got to believe he's absolutely right.
Yeah, he is. The Panthers, they have outscored the Oilers 11-4 in the first period of every game in the Stanley Cup Final. They've scored the last 7 first-period goals. But Paul Maurice said that scoring first doesn't guarantee everything. They're 10-8 in series clinching games under him in his tenure with the Panthers. But their experience in these situations is going to be an asset for them. Meanwhile, if you're Edmonton, you want to think about the great playoff moments that are ingrained in history. You think of the certain individual performances in championships talked about forever and which are immortalized. Don Larsen's perfect game, Wayne Gretzky's hat trick in the Campbell Conference Final, Michael Jordan's flu game, Mark Messier's guarantee, LeBron's block, Tom Brady in 28-3. McDavid has had many incredible individual performances in his career. You think back to games 4 and 5 of last year's finals. Game 5 was a classic, but as he scored twice and added 2 assists in that highlight reel play. But we have yet to see him have a statement performance on the way to a championship. You want to know the last time that team was able to overcome a 3-2 series deficit in the final while winning Game 6 on the road and then Game 7 at home? Look back to 21 years ago with that year's Tampa Bay Lightning in 2004.
Let me ask you this, because you said it beautifully alongside for Edmonton, and they're going to need something storybook. For Florida, they just continue to play the way that they usually do, and that's enough. But I threw this question out there on YouTube. I said, what gives the Oilers the best chance to fight off elimination tonight and force a Game 7? Here's some options. A quick start in the first period. Skinner steals the game. Both McDavid and Draisaitl go off, or shots on goal en masse against Bobrovsky. Do you like any of those, Alec, or do you have an own game plan tonight of what the Oilers need?
Why not all of the above?
Yeah, really. And again, it's one of those situations for Chris Knobloch. When you look at it now, between Cal Pickard, you're going back to Stuart Skinner. Knobloch and I is going to believe that that's the right decision. We said the same thing in Game 5 when Calvin Pickard started because he hadn't had a loss just yet. But really, you have 2 goaltenders in the mix for the Oilers, Alec, that are struggling to even hit a .900 save percentage. And you said it a couple of games ago in our post-game side of it. It seems this way as the series is going along that the Oilers are lucky to even win 2 games.
Yeah, with the 2 overtime games, the ways they did so were in comeback fashion. And they have to be lucky they even won 2 games by this point because they were a step behind. Does Chris Knobloch adjust the tactics here? We imagine that he does. Evander Kane in Game 5, we know that he is taking several undisciplined penalties, but he felt lost for the most part on the 4th line. Knobloch trusts him to go back onto where he's most comfortable, on the 2nd line next to Draisaitl and Kapanen. Kapanen didn't even play in Game 5 because he was a healthy scratch. And you got to think of the decision-making behind the process because Viktor Arvidsson played, and I don't know what the decision-making was, but Arvidsson has struggled in this finals. Kapanen, on the other hand, he's thrived on the 2nd line next to Draisaitl and Kane. So you want to go what's worked best in this postseason. And for Knobloch, I feel he's sticking with his best lines. You put Perry up at the top line, and even though at 40 years old, it's not an ideal position because you're asking a lot from a 40-year-old, but he's your best net front presence out of anyone that's remaining, with Zach Hyman out for the year.
We've talked about the adjustments at length that the Florida Panthers have made throughout this series, but you're absolutely right. You look at the first 2 games were legendary in this series, and it kind of makes you wonder, Paul Maurice is going to make his adjustments on the other side too, but I think Chris Knobloch overcorrected a little bit too much. And if we look at Game 3 in a vacuum, as we did when it was 6-1 and the demolishing of the fights all over the place, that was one of those that Edmonton tries to push Florida around. Didn't really work out all too well, and now it's kind of gone back to the hockey. We haven't seen a ton of fisticuffs, ton of pushing, but really, Edmonton needs to dig back into what it worked in Games 1 and 2 because that's their best chance of even winning this game tonight, let alone winning a series.
The shots on goal en masse. Yeah, you want to have, ideally, McDavid, if he were to lead the way, the Panthers are going to clog up everything at the bottom of the slot. Find a trailer option over at the high slot, get some screens going, and then fire a smart shot past those screens to where Bobrovsky can't see it if you're the Oilers.
So the way things will go today, I'll get a chance to lead off here. I'll give Alec second part of the third look to close, and then if it goes to OT, we'll continue to switch off as we usually do. I know in the first intermission, I'll get some thoughts in between Alec and Indiana and OKC. I know I mentioned in passing that I might be able to join in the previous games. I'm pretty sure when it gets to the next game for Game 6 that I will be on call there with Alec, because that's on a Thursday, I believe. Friday, I'll be a little bit busy, but I'm not going to miss the puck drop for Game 7 should we need it. So that will be the next situation for the Stanley Cup Finals. Edmonton's going to try to force a Game 7, which will be on Friday. Again, we'll be on air about 8:10 Eastern per usual, but the NBA Finals will be set for Thursday. So we've gone through the anthems here, and now it's time to see one more for the Florida Panthers. Good to see Roberto Luongo there. He's part of the staff there alongside the Florida Panthers and Bill Zito and everyone else. He gets a chance to bang the drum, and everybody's going to get pumped up here. As I said before in this open, Florida went to this last year being up 3-0. On the other side, not being able to close out the games, feeling the nerves and all of that. I'm expecting them to have a much better effort, alongside with the Oilers and Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. This one should be pretty electric today.
It should. And do remember, last year, Luongo was the one banging the drum in their cup-clinching victory in Game 7. The Panthers are trying for a similar stroke of luck this time around with who was banging the drum. That's a nice touch to it. Though I don't know how he feels if Marchand were to lift another cup.
Can Marchand actually go bang the drum and then run back on the ice? He's pretty much doing everything.
You're not wrong there, John.
And between him and Sam Bennett, if it ends today, we'll see who wins the MVP for the Conn Smythe. We're underway now off the tie-up at Emirates Bank Arena. Florida Panthers one win away from doing it again, just like their other rival across Florida, Tampa Bay Lightning. We get an offsides 10 seconds in.
So far, the Lightning and the Penguins, they're the first two teams to win back-to-back Stanley Cups in the salary cap era. Of course, the Panthers, they are trying to become the third team to do exactly that. We'll be seeing some of these players that are playing in this year's finals at next year's Olympics. McDavid, Barkov, Tkachuk, they're named to the preliminary rosters.
I'm glad that you mentioned that, Alec, because that's going to be the majority of our first period. I do have all the rosters breakdown, courtesy of the Olympics from the first 6 and the notables. We'll go over those, and we'll also probably go over some of those ones that curiously weren't announced yet.
Draisaitl is another one of them. He's named to Germany's roster. As we're getting reports that the J.J. Peterka front is heating up a bit. I'm surprised he wasn't named to the preliminary roster.
That was one of the ones I was thinking about too, Alec. That's a sacrificial shot block there from Genge and Ekholm. And Bouchard now will get an opportunity to waft this in across the left side red line. So right to left, that is the site for the home Reds and blue pants, Florida Panthers, road whites with the blue top and the orange stripe for the Edmonton Oilers. Will be going right to left. This will be an opportunity now for Evander Kane. Corey Perry now will get this long foot. And this will go to Nico Mikkola. Man, oh man, has he been good. There's a good reverse hit by Perry. Takes out his man as this one gets sent back down. Start again now for Kulak as we get a little camera shot of the zebra. Knuckle puck goes over the stick of Mikkola. Seth Jones loses an edge. Mikkola, he gets knocked down again. Good physicality and alongside for the Edmonton Oilers right now. As this is picked up outside boards, turned over, and Bobrovsky has to go behind him, Snow Angel. He didn't track the initial rebound well from Kane, but he's got it on the second effort.
So the first shot coming in at 72 seconds officially, but so far the second line is quicking. We talk about you want to go with your best lines. Chris Knobloch made sure that. First it starts with a reverse hit from Corey Perry knocking out Brad Marchand off his feet. Leon Draisaitl levels Nico Mikkola, and from there the second line gets to work as they're hounding Florida's third line. Kane, Draisaitl, and Kapanen are buzzing early.
Yeah, they've got to keep this going, Alec, not just for this period, but they need to get a conversion, as you mentioned beautifully. That's the only way. And alongside for Corey Perry's opening comments that we already profiled, they've got to get a couple conversions here, start on the right foot, make sure the Florida Panthers are on their heels if they have any chance. I also have some Tkachuk comments here for you from the first intermission, so you're going to want to stay tuned for that. We should have a good one today. Opportunity off the drop pass, as this will be bounced away from Listerine, and now Bennett gets an opportunity, number 9, who's been so good in this series. Good stick handle off the drop for Tkachuk. This one gets sent high toward the right side of the glass, and now Mikkola throws a hit on Frederick, gloves it down out of the air. Nico still trying to work with it near the left side boards as he wraps it around for Stuart Skinner. There'll be a lead for Bennett. I'll loop it back around one more time for Matthew Tkachuk, who gets pinned. Leon Draisaitl right there to provide some reinforcements and take this one end to end. That's what the Oilers want to do. Here's a chip and across the left side boards, and the Oilers will be the first to it, as it was Darnell Nurse that had it. Evander Kane gets a rough ride from Nico Mikkola. Nico Mikkola has been all over the ice here early alongside with Kane, as Frederick was stuck in a dog pile. Long shot be fought off by the stick of Sergei Bobrovsky.
Uh-oh. Are we having audio issues here, John? So that's...
Oh, my apologies. There's one sent back in toward the left side red line. I apologize, Al, because this is recollected now for Nico Mikkola. This will be sent in. Again, the recorder's got all that, but not for the YouTube or X side. I apologize. This is sent back around. Opportunity now is Skinner, and this will be held by Bobrovsky. 17:01.
Oh, so we apologize for the technical difficulties, and now the excitement's starting to build up. Seth Jones, who I predict if Florida wins the Cup tonight, he'll get the first handoff. Jeff Skinner going early on the third line side. This third line has been sneakily good between Skinner and Adam Henrique. John Klingberg just inserted back onto the lineup. Gets a long shot through traffic. He wants to go to that bottom left side of Bobrovsky. He left that one uncovered. Skinner then tests Bobrovsky, who was all over that left post. He tried to locate it. He does.
So I've had to reload the YouTube side one more time, and this actually muted me. Again, I have everything on my end, so when it gets uploaded to Spotify, we didn't miss any of those, but I apologize to Al for about 4 minutes. I'm continuing to monitor this across the YouTube side just in case it shadows out. I know we're not the only ones streaming the Stanley Cup Final, so I imagine it's going to be a busy day. 4 shots to nothing early here for the Edmonton Oilers, as this one's tied up. Now Tkachuk try to get this a reverse hit, knocks him down. As this will be settled back down across the left side blue line. Here's an opportunity now for Evan Rodriguez, who rims this around for Matthew Tkachuk. Flip back here for Kulak, and a good reverse hit for Bennett, as this goes to the left side red line, and Darnell Nurse. And off the reverse now, Evan Rodriguez. Throw this back to the point. Nate Schmidt, little touch pass, helps him stay on side, as this bounces off of Stuart Skinner. Hasn't been in his end much, as Nate Schmidt. Here's a floating puck far off by Skinner. It was a double deflection off the left pad as Nate Schmidt gets passed across, and Janmark recollects for Edmonton. We'll step in 2 for McDavid. We'll go back around for Stuart Skinner, way out of his goal crease. Start again now for Kulak. So Chris now blocks Swab, take a chain. Get the same for Paul Maurice's. 4-0 on the shot board, just 4 minutes in for Edmonton. We're still scoreless. Delayed offside as Draisaitl still hasn't paid attention to that. And Reinhart now rimming around the inboards, getting the red line. Stuart Skinner again having some trouble with it and behind his net. Carter Verhaeghe trying to pick this one up now as this goes in behind the cage of Skinner, who's sitting on the butterfly. Verhaeghe now looking for it now alongside with Alex Barkov. And this will be dispossessed by the Oilers. Cross check here for Florida. As Evan Bouchard, this will bounce off his skates, and it's picked up off the backhand. Sam Reinhart. Oh my goodness, Alec! What a goal!
Wow! And again, the Panthers, they have the first goal this game. What we do know about Florida is that they capitalize off of mistakes. The first shot, first goal, and Reinhart, he makes no mistake about it. Took notes from Brad Marchand last game, and Reinhart opens the scoring. He scored the cup-clinching goal last year. He wants to make sure the Panthers win another one. Bouchard, what was he doing with the puck? Reinhart catches him napping over at the blue line and makes no mistake walking into the zone, past Ekholm, double move, and as he falls down, goes far side.
He windmills around Bouchard, as Alex said. He was way too lazy with the puck. If he wants to flip the end of the ice, just smash it across the boards. You can't just hot dog it. And Sam Reinhart, yes, he makes an unbelievable move to windmill and scores. He's falling down, a la Ovechkin, but that is awful if you're Evan Bouchard. You cannot have that happen. And now Lindell, we'll talk about it a little bit more as we get a quick stoppage off a glove save. But It was a 5-0 lead on the shot board for the Edmonton Oilers, but Evan Bouchard, that is an awful mistake.
That was egregious. You cannot have that happen. You're preparing for the breakout, yet you're playing too complacent with the puck.
Yes.
Florida, of course, they made no mistake taking this away as Bouchard mishandled it and was being way too lazy with the puck. You cannot do that against the Panthers.
See, I'm glad that we're not making the excuse that about another save alongside for Lindell. Now that a third line starting to hum after this goal. We're not making the excuse, and I'm glad we didn't, that the initial pass bounces off his skates. Yes, he's got to take a moment to recollect and find it with the backhand. But, you know, if I'm him, I'm slap-shotting it. I'm even knocking it away with the glove. I'm taking a penalty. I'm doing anything I can to make sure the puck gets out of the zone, because if Sam Reinhart gets an opportunity to showcase what he can just do, he's going to score.
Yeah, if he gets that opportunity, he's going to score every time.
This is off the tie-up again. Here's an intentional slap shot wide. A.J. Greer throws it out in front of Skinner, who's going to make a big save. He wasn't able to track it behind him. It was directly behind the net. And now the fourth line getting some shots. This is the worst possible scenario that Edmonton would have asked for. Again, they had a 5-0 lead on the shot board, one turnover. And now all of a sudden, Florida's got life. See what they can do here now off the touch pass. As this goes back in behind the boards. Good dispossessed for Nosek. At least for Jones, and an outstretch is a good one. This is Greer. Got hit for a moment by Skinner off the drop. That's Jeff Skinner. Is just sent back around for Brett Kulak. Off the long foot. Back skate of Kapanen, who gets dispossessed off the puck. Again, 3 Panthers there to take it away. Here's a pass that gets picked off on Florida's end. We'll see what Edmonton can do here, but they immediately cough it up near the right side of the glass. Nate Schmidt's pass will get settled back down. So it's a 4-game point streak for Sam Reinhart, and he opens first blood in Game 6. Again, all the Cats need to do is win this, and they close this series out in 6. We won't even need Friday if that's the case. John Klingberg off the spin and turn. This is Serena, and he's getting worked over now. Evander Kane, that was Rodriguez, wanted to get some other words in there. Kulikov tries to finish his hit alongside Nate Schmidt. He gets pinned against the glass. Kapanen bumped again. He's making bumper cars here as this is Kulikov off the stick lift. RNH was holding his stick. No call. We'll go the other way. Latest goal scorer in Reinhart trying to work around the defense. Barkov toward the right side red line. Reinhart throws his elbow in as this will be flipped back down. Nice keep in by Verhaeghe right at the line off the drop pass. I don't know if he's going to be able to find Barkov. Another cross check. Kulikov lets it go. This one gets blocked. That was Ekblad. And alongside for Forsling, start again. Reinhart now for Barkov. Reinhart. This one goes just wide of the right side glass. Little overskate. And that's going to allow Edmonton to go ahead and pick up the puck or chip and chase. Bobrovsky sees it, comes way out of the goal crease to go ahead and make a play and across the end boards to the left side red line. Cats have the puck. Barkov trying to get out of zone end. Good dispossess and flip across ends. As this will be sent back down. Iced against the Cats, but that's okay. 12:42 left to go in the first. They're feeling good after that first goal.
They have to. They have all the energy ever since Reinhart scored the opening goal of this game. That's the 8th straight first period goal in which the Panthers have scored this series. And we look at the preliminary Olympic rosters. We didn't mention one other player. That is Sam Reinhart, who was the second Canadian to be named to the Olympic roster among these two teams. Of course, we know about the McKinnons and the Crosbys and Makars of the world.
And you said it, alongside with the Edmonton Oilers and the Florida Panthers. A lot of these guys we've seen in 4 nations. A lot of them we'll see in the Olympics. You kind of think of it the same way. Other names that haven't been announced yet, we know we're going to see them too, as Bobrovsky will hold. With 12:23 left to go in the opening frame.
And as we head into our first break of this game, we wonder if Bill Guerin is going to get Jason Robertson to Team USA, because that was the most notable snub from the Four Nations face-off, that he chose Chris Kreider over Jason Robertson. Granted, Kreider's no slouch, but ideally, you want to have a bigger name player here. We get that Kreider is a net front presence that can chime in short-handed, but you would rather have Robertson in this scenario, wouldn't you?
I would, Alec, and I would say the same thing. Make sure I get this correct from the Four Nations of Chris Kreider and Brock Nelson, right? So then I will just flip both of those out for Jason Robertson. And how about the recent gold medalist at the World Stage, Thompson?
I was about to bring up Tage Thompson too. I'm glad you brought him up. With the way he played in the IHF World Championship, he deserves a spot in the Olympics. If you want to swap out Kreider and Nelson for Robertson and Thompson, this is your opportunity, Bill Guerin.
That's the only way that I see it. Again, I'm not Bill Guerin, and neither is Alec, but I think for the roster construction purposes, Alec and I could do a better job.
Well, yeah. I mean, we're not part of the front office, but we can, of course, say that Robertson and Thompson get spots. Of course, you have to bring up the Tkachuk brothers there. You bring Austin Matthews, Jack Eichel, Quinn Hughes. What I'm curious is Charlie McAvoy, who missed a huge majority of the remainder of the season, gets named to the initial roster. And while this is not an attack on McAvoy because he is a solid defenseman, but I'm concerned about his injury history as of late because he had himself a down year for standards, and frankly enough, ever since that injury he suffered in the Four Nations, I wonder if Jacob Slavin, if he's available.
It would be another one of those to talk about, and I won't disagree with you because the Bruins really need it. And again, they're showing the Bouchard low light. And I know initially off the skate, as we mentioned, but there is no chance. And they're showing Stuart Skinner maybe not playing it right. I'm not going to blame Stuart Skinner, Alec. He's got no chance.
You know, that majority of that right side of the net is uncovered. Of course, Ryer's going to go far side, an area where Skinner, the way he's going to make the save is if he makes an acrobatic leap.
You're not going to be able to do that, even for Stuart Skinner. I know the goaltenders there are much maligned at times. But we mentioned the numbers alongside Stuart Skinner. It can be very good in potential closeout situations. Corey Perry lost an edge as this goes toward the left side of the red line. Sam Reinhart. This is off the tie-up, and this will go right to the Cats. Carter Verhaeghe. Just a backhand shovel safely across the red line. Skinner will stop this one with the stick handle. He's had some tough times in this game, I'll say in particular, playing the puck in behind the net, and the forward check has been unrelenting as Verhaeghe steals again. Now what do they want to do? Here's a long shot that bounces off the inboards. Kulak trying to find it. Marchand getting stick position. We'll just loft it. It's going to go back to Mikkola, though, but Mikkola coughs it right up, right in across the Cats logo, but Marchand is there. Chips it near the players' bench, and now Luostarinen got all held up. It'll be flipped back around now for the defense. Have to start this one again. I believe that is Klingberg turning on the burners. Is this one sent back around for Bobrovsky? Bobrovsky has this one bounced off of Adam Henrique and Janmark. This will be just kept in across the blue line side, shot wide away from the zebra. Nate Schmidt's going to need some help. Uses off arm, brush away the contact. And a good diving play for Tkachuk, and then he sweeps it away. My goodness, what an effort. As this goes back around on the right side, Tkachuk will learn to let the hit go, and this will be sent back down. It will be ice, but Matthew Tkachuk, ladies and gentlemen, that's all world defense.
If this is a preview of what we're going to get in the Olympics next year, Matthew Tkachuk just delivered an appetizer for what is about to be seen for Team USA. They're going to like this here over at the Miami Beaches. And the Panthers, we just got a glimpse of it, but they're 10-0 in series-clinching games when they score first.
And you mentioned it alongside Matthew and Brady that they love playing for Team USA. They tell you what type of joy it is and what the responsibility is. They understand the assignment, and that is why they're one of the ones that are first named. We saw what happened with them in the Four Nations. It was awesome to watch them play together. This is sent back in behind the inboards. We get an aerial shot of Bobrovsky, Luostarinen, all tied up again for RNH. You know, he's battling a little bit of an injury. Same thing with Matthew Tkachuk and a lot of other people on the ice. John Klingberg intentionally wide in amongst the inboards. This will go back to Klingberg. Send this one D to D. And this will be fought off for Bobrovsky from Wallman's chance. Finally gets him pushing and shoving now. Evander Kane wants to take on everybody. He didn't win that assignment as he fell down in behind the net. And now Luostarinen's got a hold of Kapanen. Kapanen's not letting go of Tkachuk. That's just the way that it's going with 10-15 left in the first.
Every game, does it seem that Evander Kane wants to be the villain at Miami and Fort Lauderdale? Because it feels that way. He's going after everybody. We know that he wants to present himself as a menace on the ice. Someone that's viewed as a pest. Someone that can get under anyone else's skin. Tkachuk's some phase, but with the way that Kane and Tkachuk go at each other, it's pest versus pest.
It is, Alec, and again, I know we punched this button a few times throughout this series. I want Evander Kane to do those type of things, but if I'm Edmonton, you got to be able to provide that, not cross the line, and you still need to score goals. They need Evander Kane's offense.
Yes, especially since he's put back on the second line. Now, one thing I noticed that RNH was on the centering the second line side as Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid back out there 4-on-4, so it's offsetting penalties for roughing. But we know about RNH's versatility, that he can center his own line or be on the top line's left wing side. Bennett and Kane to the box.
Yeah, they've taken both of those, as Alec mentioned. Again, a slash and a rough on the other end, as it's Jake Woolman. 4-on-4 space, who does this favor? You would think if you mix in between McDavid and Draisaitl, as we're going to see now, that this should be an advantage for them. McDavid, off a power move, he's got 3 Panthers right in his face. That's been the story of this series. This will be a drop now for Evan Bouchard. Leon Draisaitl, Bouchard with a clapper. Good save, Bobrovsky fights it off with the left pad. That was a wide open slot slapper as this goes back down with 1:20 left to go on the 4-on-4. 9:35 left in the first, running with you alongside Alec Nava. It's a lone goal for Sam Reinhart, the only of the first. Walk-in wrister, another 5-hole save. I wonder he didn't want to try to roof that one in the middle of the slot, but they choose not to. And Nico Mikkola can take a little bit of bereavement behind his net. Scoring chances 3-3. Mikkola elects to go back. This is a slow ender on the boards. Marchand, he gets tripped up. Try to pop up back to his feet. Anton Lundell, that third line's out there right now. Marchand hunts the puck. He's so good at getting a stick lift and fighting for position and getting around Woolman like one of those goals. And again, I watched a pretty good video on the Hockey Psychology YouTube. As soon as the hand is waved on the dot, you can go ahead and get that pinch. And that's how he got that goal from Anton Lundell to set up the first one. He just knows where to be. Connor Brown, and off the spin. And this will be left, and Lundell will flip this in off the glass. Safely across the red line and back into Edmonton's end. 4-on-4 for 20 more seconds. 8:35 left to go in the first. Dynamo Bank Arena. It's a 1-0 lead for the Cats. They got a 3-2 series lead, and the Stanley Cup is indeed in the building. Opportunity now for the touch pass. Back to Nate Schmidt. A little soft feed as Evan Rodriguez spin and turn. A lot of puck possession here for Florida. Now they're being a little too cute. This is sent back in toward the right side boards, and Enrique will lose this in between his skates here as Bennett, but the pass right out of the box a little bit too far. I think Florida dodged a bullet there for a moment. I know what they wanted to do with the puck possession, but you don't want to have the same thing happen to you that Evan Bouchard did.
No, you don't, because the Oilers, they came so close to striking the back of the net with Evan Bouchard. He, of course, with the signature Bouch bomb, he scored one 4-on-4 goal. And we talk about individual performances. The Panthers, they're putting McDavid on a headlock right now. He's getting locked to perfection, forcing an Ekblad all over him. This is masterful defense.
Yeah, it is. It really looks like the WWE Royal Rumble. McDavid's all for one in the sense, but that's the way it's been throughout this series. If you want to defend him, that's how you have to defend him, and pulls off the blue line, but make sure you have bodies and mass. Bouchard will try to wrap him behind the net and leave for Corey Perry. McDavid now with the stick shot. He can't find it. Again, there was 3 Panthers in his grill. Evan Bouchard. Well, get this turned over again to Verhaeghe. What is happening? Verhaeghe's chance gets fought off by Skinner. Bouchard needs to get out of this period. Man, oh man. As this is picked up now with a touch pass, this will be dispossessed. Florida steals. Now Connor McDavid, power move. He gets sticked away by Sergei Bobrovsky. Heads up goaltending there. Sam Reinhart with a touch pass. 7:15 left to go in the first. Barkov sends it in. This goes off the stick shaft to Stuart Skinner. Barkov now leaving off the end around. We'll see if Ekblad can find it. Ekblad trying to go back to the captaincy. The Finnish captain's one of the very best we have in the league. As this one goes D-to-D from Tkachuk. There's a step ahead. Rister, this will go up and out of play. But that is Bouchard turnover counter number 2, right to Verhaeghe.
Well, we, of course, are asking the same question about Evan Bouchard with the 2 turnovers he committed, one of them leading to a goal. What are you doing? We get that he's one of the premier offensive defensemen. McDavid does a power move. The puck disagrees with him as it escapes his stick at the last moment with Sam Reinhart on his face. That makes life easier for Bobrovsky to make a simpler stick save. As McDavid, with Reinhart on his face, he lost control of it at the moment which he was approaching the net.
Alec, let me ask you this. I know it's a tough question, but just give me your honest thoughts. I know it's 1-0 courtesy of Sam Reinhart. And I know there's been some egregious mistakes here and there, but it is 9-6 on the shot board. The Oilers are doing their best to keep the game in front of them. If they're down 1-0, it's not the end of the world, is it? It hasn't been a terrible period for them.
It's not. I mean, you have to be happy that you're down 1-0. You had some good looks if you're Edmonton, especially on the 4-on-4 side. Early at 5-on-5, it looked to be the Oilers' way, but the Panthers quickly caught up after getting the first goal of the game. But it's more evenly paced, and that 4-on-4 might have helped Edmonton for a moment before it went back to 5-on-5. McDavid did get the best chance he's ever had, but unfortunately the puck escapes him at the last moment. And we know about missed penalties. Of course, the Ryan Nugent-Hopkins holding the stick penalty uncalled. The Brad Marchand trip, I don't think that's a trip because he tried to jump to avoid getting tripped over. So that might have been why the penalty was not called.
No, you're absolutely right with that. And again, from where we are in Game 6, Panthers have a 3-2 series lead and a 1-0 lead courtesy of Sam Reinhart. With 6:57 left in the first. Alec and I mention this all the time, whether or not Cooper was in here or not. When you get in late to these series, especially in the Stanley Cup Finals, the whistles will be swallowed, and you're not going to get anything unless it's absolutely egregious. So this game is going to have to be won 5-on-5 primarily. And as Alec mentioned, throughout these games that we've covered, that's where the Oilers haven't had much fun.
Yeah, 5-on-5, the Oilers were getting put in a headlock. Well, you know, if there's a team that's dangerous in elimination games, it's them.
See what they can do here. They're going to have to play from behind, but admittedly, it's only one. It's 8-6 on the shot board. They cannot let the game get completely away from them. Because if it goes to a 2 or 3 goal lead here early, that's when things will completely change, and Florida should be able to lock down. Yes, in the mix of Game 4, a little bit of an exception there alongside that 3-0 lead, but that's unlike Florida, and we're never going to see that again. I wouldn't think so, as we didn't see it in Game 5 especially, as this is sent back around the end boards now for Connor Brown. Brad Marchand, what a move to get away from the danger. Now he gets a little bit of an outlet and gets chipped in toward the right side of the glass, spin and turn for Bobrovsky, who helps located for Nate Schmidt. I'd love to see Nate Schmidt stick around with the Florida Panthers. I don't know what all the cap hits are going to look like for him and Nico Mikkola and all that, but they've been so good. As this is bouncing across the blue line side. Panthers, one-knee play, try to get it out, can't do it. That was tough there. RNH sets it up, and this shot gets blocked. Kapanen throws it back to his defense. They're having some trouble with it, and now Nate Schmidt's going to get back to his post. This is another save for Bobrovsky. Again, we do a lot of talking about Bennett and Marchand per usual, but Sergei Bobrovsky, make no mistake about it, deserves every single bit of intrigue. And if you can go ahead and split that Conn Smythe trophy into a bunch of different pieces, there would be a lot of cats that would be getting it. And dare I say, even in a series loss, I don't think Connor McDavid's going to be lifting that Conn Smythe again. This will go to one of the cats this year, should they win it. Sent back around now, taken away from Ekblad, Corey Perry. Try to feed this one to the right side. Down Bouchard will take it D-to-D. As they'll rim this around the end boards now. Connor McDavid has to battle through the stick left with Draisaitl. And this pass is lofted. Draisaitl now try to get it back to Connor, desperately trying to work for the puck, but Barkov is there. Carter Verhaeghe takes this off the left side red line, and Stuart Skinner slowed down off the end board. Skinner's pass will be lofted to the right side. The Cats are there again. Alec the steal right in off the inboards where Skinner wants to play the puck. Turn, big save with the left pad. Tkachuk, it's his shot blocked as this one bounces up the air. It bounces away from Verhaeghe, and now Tkachuk finishes his head. This is a pass across. Oh man, Sam Bennett should have shot that one. It could have been 2-0. As it's sent the other way now as we race back off the bounce pass. Spun off by Bobrovsky with the glove hand. That was excellent work for Tkachuk. He's had a great game so far. Kulak now just holds the blue line there to skate backwards. The 1T goes way wide from Jeff Skinner. And now this will be flipped into the players' bench. We get a stoppage at 4:07. But Tkachuk has had his fingerprints on this game.
This is one of Tkachuk's better games that he's played in the finals. We haven't seen a lot of him on the score sheet. We saw him twice on the power play, but Sam Bennett with a big steal. Yeah, I thought that Bennett shot that, but Stuart Skinner with a tremendous save to keep this one alive. Skinner's doing a lot to keep the Oilers afloat. And Edmonton, of course, they're having the desperation factor matched by Florida's this factor of matching the Oilers' desperation. We know the Oilers' desperation is going to come naturally with the fact that they're facing elimination for the first time in the playoffs, as they were 5-1 in elimination games last year. But this year, as we're looking at the Oilers in elimination for the first time, the Panthers, they're matching that every turn.
Yeah, they are. And you talked about desperation. It was a good opportunity for me to bring in the quote. And I saw this because Matthew Tkachuk was asked from the media about the desperation of McDavid and Draisaitl. How do you handle it? He goes, the same way we always handle it. We're a desperate squad, too. We're trying to get back-to-back cups.
And if you're Florida, of course, you're up 1-0. But if you're leading 1-0 after one, that the intuition may say that might not be enough. You have to get at least 2 goals here in this first period if you were to truly put the Oilers in a hole. Because a 1-goal lead, you're giving the Oilers any semblance of life in later down the game.
Yeah, you said it, Alec. I've mentioned it. Cooper's mentioned it before. I mean, if it's a 1-goal lead, it's essentially even if you're playing against a team like the Oilers. And I believe that statement. All the way up until Game 6 now, between Games 5 and 6, I'm not saying the Oilers are running out of gas like some of the other media members are saying. What I'm saying, Alec, is we're seeing the adjustments in real time for the Florida Panthers. We're seeing what happens when you throw the body a bunch of times, sap away some of that energy, and make the defensive adjustments. That's what I'm seeing from the Florida Panthers most as this series goes along.
If they're unfazed by that blown 3-0 lead, Matthew Tkachuk being everywhere on the ice, and of course you mentioned the Bennett shot that I mentioned previously, that was from earlier in this game. Of course, Bennett should have shot that one so as to make it 2-0.
That's what I thought it would have been. 15 goals in the postseason. You don't want to second guess that. He's had the hot hand, and that's the understatement. As Bennett now will lurk. Here's a chip pass toward the left side blue line. Frederick, he takes a hit, bounces right off of it. This will go to Kulak. Kulak now trying to keep his head up. 3-game point streak for Matthew Tkachuk. 2 goals, 3 assists. He mentioned this is the best that he's felt. We'll get some more of those expanded comments in the first of alongside the Olympic first 6 and other notables. This should be a good, fun intermission. This will be chipped back down. Rolling vulcanized rubber. 3:25 left to go in this first. Alec, I'm a little bit jealous that it's going so quickly because I don't want our time in the Stanley Cup Finals to end, but I know we've had a lot of fun with it. It's been a privilege covering this with you. As it's sent back around now for Brad Marchand. Cross-ice feed bounces off with a right pad of Stuart Skinner. And this will be gloved back down for Dmitry Kulikov. Rolling puck. Florida couldn't play it because there's a hand pass. They do now. Marchand touches. We get a whistle at 3:06.
Kulikov tried to glove it down to himself, but he stumbled a bit in going backwards. Brad Marchand is having the time of his life at 37 years old. Started the year in Boston, got traded to Florida. This was the only place he wanted to play for after the contract dilemmas. I thought this takes a bounce off the stick of Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, and then it bounces off the skate of Jake Wallman right in front. But it was a pinball sequence for the Oilers in blocking Marchand's cross-ice pass.
Yes, it was, Alec. Thank you for that. He called Pinball Wizard. I know I'm making a joke here, but we sure we don't want to check Brad Marchand's birth certificate? Is this unsaved? And off the back end, a one-timer goes way wide, but he's been playing so good. This might be the best hockey he's ever played, and he's already got a Stanley Cup with the Boston Bruins. Some of the moves I've seen him make, canceling out the time and space, and just bringing that moxie. That's everything else the Cats are already about, and then you add that. And they didn't give up much to go ahead and get him alongside, so the Panthers are feeling pretty good. This will be chipped in. I have to imagine Brad Marchand's going to retire as a Cat. I don't think he's done after this year. He's been a lot more. And the Panthers could get more. They still have a predominantly young team, as it's 2:20 left to go in the first.
Yes, of course, even at 38 years old, all they had to give up was a second-round pick that turned into a first-round pick. So Florida has to be feeling pretty good. And the Boston Bruins, they have to be sick to their stomach that they only got a first-round pick in return. Well, it could be a future asset. We don't know how the Panthers are going to be later down on the road, and to see who that first-round pick is. Whoever is that first-round pick, I got to wonder wherever he's playing in high school.
Yeah, that's true, Alec, and I'll mention this. For a first-round pick for a chance at the Stanley Cup, I think we could say it honestly. If Brad Marchand isn't on this team, Florida probably isn't even in this position.
Yeah, no. If he isn't there, and if we don't see the LTIR move of Matthew Tkachuk, we won't see the Panthers in the Stanley Cup Final.
You could say the same thing alongside Zeph Jones. I know he hasn't had the elongated impact that Brad Marchand has had of late, but Zeph Jones has been very good. And Florida did an excellent job with the cap situation to replace everything. Here's a chance. Lundell have to fight off the puck there as Brett Kulak off the spin and turn. Oilers are just being subjugated in their own end with this constant forecheck from the Cats. We've seen it a lot in Game 5. It's really bubbling in Game 6. Nico Mikkola, he keeps it in. This one, I'm not even sure how he did that, as this is a long reach sent back around for Luostarinen. Back at the left side point, Seth Jones keeping his head up. Looking for a cross-ice feed. Back door from Marchand. I thought he would have scored. He couldn't get a stick on it. Now Marchand. And off the backhand, such a good pass. Find an entry, Lundell walks in, shoots. And this one, it's the left side of the boards. Panthers really cooking now. Ekblad. And off the tie-up for Higgy. Now Evan Rodriguez tried to get out. Lundell right there on a back check. Couldn't take the line change just yet. Take it away from Bouchard. He's had a rough first period. Luostarinen waits for space. Off the drop. Barkov! Scores! Kachuk scores!
We mentioned it. You have to score at least 2 to truly put the Oilers in a hole. There's the second goal, and Kachuk, we speak of some of the greatest teams ever assembled. The Panthers, they have an opportunity to create one of the greatest teams ever assembled between this, the Tampa Bay Lightning, the Pittsburgh Penguins. You think of the Red Wings, the Avalanche of years past, the Devils, in that regard. This is truly a special team. Plain and simple. A feed right out to the high slot as Kachuk. He roofs it by Stuart Skinner. Luostarinen with the right idea. And Bouchard with a third giveaway of this first period. Of course, saying that this is a rough first period for Bouchard is an understatement. As Kachuk, he roofed it through the screen set by Lundell. What a goal.
That was disgusting, Elliot, because, okay, you got Bouchard with the turnover there. Lundell couldn't take his change. He's tied out there alongside with Matthew Kachuk and Luostarinen, so you got the mix there. He sees the steal right at center ice, able to make it, and then Luostarinen. I mean, that's too much space. With the screen in front, as you mentioned, for Lundell, Kachuk can do whatever he wants. No mistake, roof job. Skinner, I feel bad for him. He's been left out to dry, but it's safe to say Kachuk's back. Last four games, 3 goals, 3 assists for Chuck E. Cheese.
Oh, that's got to be a hot tear for him. Ever since the 2 power play goals, you got to wonder that all of Calgary is smiling knowing that he's on top, and a certain man watching from above is smiling.
Me too. I will say that throughout the broadcast. I'm really enjoying it from all the games I've called alongside Cooper and yourself, especially with the Flames, to see Matthew Kachuk have this type of success. But I'll punch it again. I really do feel bad for Stuart Skinner. I don't know what he's supposed to do on either one of those goals. And I don't want to sit and pick on Bouchard as we're going to get set to end this first period. There won't be any time for one more rushes. Mercifully, between the tail, between their legs, Edmonton has to crawl back to the dressing room down 2-0. Bouchard's given away the puck 3 times, and 2 of his giveaways have directly resulted in goals for the Cats. That is miserable stuff.
Absolutely miserable. As the 2 giveaways have led to this 2-0 hole that the Oilers are in again. And, of course, we're wondering, what exactly is this going to mean for the contract negotiations for Evan Bouchard? Because remember, he's an RFA this summer, and I feel he's going to command north of $9 million per year. But, oh my goodness, this is not going to go well with contract negotiations. And, of course, you also think of, what are you going to do with Darnell Nurse because of his $9.5 million cap hit? This summer is going to be one of the biggest off seasons in Oilers history, because you have the Bouchard negotiations, you have the question of whether or not to move Nurse. In an ideal world, you have to, though you have to get his approval to move him. Though, I also imagine that if you're going to trade him, if you and maybe have to be on a rebuilding team, you need to get somebody in return. One of my suggestions that I made on Puckpedia when I was browsing around there was that trade Nurse for Ilya Mikheyev. Mikheyev might or might not be out of place in Chicago because Chicago is utilizing him as a top 6 forward when he's ideally a middle 6 forward. And with this stuff about Connor Brown, if Brown walks in free agency, Mikheyev could take his production.
Yeah, you're probably right. 50% retention alongside Darnell Nurse. They got to get rid of that money. For Evan Bouchard, as you mentioned, I don't want to pick on him too much as I just previously thought, but you're going to need to take the defensive side and just put a black Sharpie through it on the contract and have the agent and everyone else not look at that side of the ice right now, because that was a brutal 20 minutes for one Mr. Bouchard, who, as Alec mentioned, is a $10 million plus type of player. He's so good offensively, but you need to provide more defensively. Just very, very quickly, Calder Cup Series tied at a game apiece. Abbotsford's Canucks, again, they're in action today. That second game, they lost. They won 4-3 in double overtime. We profiled that. 3-2 Saturday matinee was overtime for the Checkers. Michael Benning has the game-winning goal. I'll give you the updates that on the second intermission. Andrew Mangiapane is headed back to the market. He's not going to sign with the Washington Capitals. Before I get into these other quotes from Matthew Tkachuk, Alec, I saw this from courtesy of the Hockey Guy. Pittsburgh Penguins and Evgeny Malkin are likely eyeing the 25-26 upcoming season to be his last.
That's how I'm getting the general feeling for Malkin, that they're not offering a contract extension, but what I feel that this upcoming season for Malkin may be the farewell tour for him. I feel with the way that he's played, he was a great player, but now he's a hollow shell of what he was. And it'll be appropriate that if he retires after the 2026 season. He has accomplished a lot here in Pittsburgh with his Conn Smythe Trophy winning season in 2009 all the way to a Stanley Cup. He's won 3 of them with the Burgh. But then again, he's forever a Pittsburgh legend. And I imagine no future Penguins player will ever wear the number 71 again.
No, they won't. And again, he's a legend in my book. Multiple-time Stanley Cup champion alongside Sidney Crosby, Letang, and that whole group. He's a part of that. But Alex, right, there comes a point where Father Time catches up to you. It's amazing it hasn't caught up to Sidney Crosby yet, because no shame in the mix of it. You kind of think of, and I don't want to make this comparison lightly, Alec, but you think about that same draft class in 2003 with LeBron James, Carmelo Anthony, and Dwayne Wade. You got those guys going out in the sunset. But yet all those same Pittsburgh Penguins are on that same point. It's just Sidney Crosby has played like LeBron James, but the other guys are Hall of Famers.
Yeah, between Wade, Carmelo Anthony, you could also mention Chris Bosh and the Toronto Raptors and Miami Heat side. But Sidney Crosby, like LeBron James, stands alone in that 2003 class. He's still going here. And while he has 2 more years with Pittsburgh given his current contract, what I believe is left of him now in terms of any future accomplishments is international play. He's accomplished everything you could possibly ask for in the NHL. What's left here is international play.
We're going to get to that in a moment. So again, I went to the Tkachuk-McDavid desperation point of it, but I do want to jump into this alongside with Matthew Tkachuk. His comments a couple days ago from the media, he was at 50% chance or less that he would even participate in the playoffs from the Four Nations injury. It goes on to say he knew that the first-round test against the Tampa Bay Lightning would be the toughest for him as far as his feelings and maybe even for the team, but he needed to find a way to come back and help the group. It goes on to say if it wasn't for the trainers in his corner to help with rehab, he wouldn't be here. And again, Alec, as this series is done, we'll know in a couple of days whether or not it ends tonight what type of injury Tkachuk is playing through, but no doubt it's another serious one. But he does say that now is the best that he's been feeling. And Alec and I have been able to profile through these first 6 games. We see Matthew Tkachuk starting to look like himself.
He is. And he's very comfortably settled into playing in the Stanley Cup Final and has reverted back to being the player that we all know that he could be. Playing for a historically, we could see this being a great Panthers team down on the future when it's all said and done. We could talk about Bennett, Ekblad, and the free agent discussions, but we wonder that if we're comparing teams, I did mention before the finals, or at one point the finals, that if we're talking about potential dynasties, a more accurate comparison for this Panthers team would be the 1980s Islanders team. Those Red Wings teams over the late 90s and the 2000s focused more on puck possession. They're not too overly physical, but they relied more on the creativity between Yzerman, Zetterberg, the Russian Five, Datsuk, Lidstrom, Kronwall, Osgood, Hasek for that one ride. And you could even mention Mike Vernon, the 1997 edition of it. Those Red Wings teams focused on puck possession and creativity. This Panthers team focuses on skill, size, and physicality. A mix of all three of those, and you have an excellent all-time goaltender in Sergei Bobrovsky, who I emphasize time and time again. There's the Patrick Waugh comparisons are right there, and he's playing like Patrick Waugh in his later years.
You're absolutely right, Alec, in terms of all that, and thank you for the Red Wings shout-out, because it makes me feel better for all the times that your Pittsburgh Penguins clowned my Red Wings, as that was some interesting back and forth. But you're absolutely right about Bobrovsky. Again, you could talk about that $10 million contract. You mentioned alongside Ian over the several seasons. Nobody's talking about that now because Sergei Bobrovsky is one of the best in the business. He's the most decorated of all time, and he's got legendary status. I'm going to go ahead and go through for the top 6 for USA, Canada, and then we'll go through some notables. So this is going to sound a lot like Four Nations, but the first 6 announced: Jack Eichel, Austin Matthews, Brady and Matthew Tkachuk, Quinn Hughes, Charlie McAvoy. Again, no surprise there. Same as Four Nations. For Team Canada, they're going to go with 5 forwards and one D-man. Again, Canada's got the best forwards in the business. Nobody's going to be able to argue that. Connor McDavid, Sidney Crosby, Nathan McKinnon, Braden Point, Sam Reinhart. Kel McCarr is the only defenseman that's announced. No surprise when it comes to USA and Canada, I take it.
And we know all of the tight conversation between USA and Canada. If USA is going to get revenge for the Four Nations face-off, of course, we have to ask ourselves, what would happen if Quinn Hughes didn't get hurt? What would happen if Matthew Tkachuk didn't get hurt in the USA-Canada round-robin game? But then again, Canada was without Kel McCarr in the round-robin game, and it came out on top. They had Thomas Harley filling in because of the injuries. Alex Pietrangelo was initially slated to be on Canada's roster, but he had to opt out because of an injury. Now the latest development on Pietrangelo is that his health is in question for the entirety of the 2026 season, and we wonder if that's going to impact Vegas or not. Between USA and Canada, we anticipate that we could have a rematch here, but one sleeper team that we want to look out for is Sweden. Between their preliminary roster of Rasmus Dahlin, Victor Hedman, Adrian Kempe, William Nylander, Lucas Raymond, and Gabriel Landeskog, I feel Sweden's a sleeper team in the Olympics in hockey.
I want to get to Sweden there in a moment. We'll do so now that you mentioned it. Gabe Landeskog, we just saw him come back from the Colorado Eagles, admittedly, and then have that game where he had 5 hits, scored a goal, looked really good. I guess that goes ahead and tells you that Gabriel Landeskog is going to be ready for winter 2026.
He will be. The conditioning, I feel, is going to be up to the standards that he's going to go with. Back onto form with Colorado, you get a season of wear and tear on your body, and to get back into the action, you get a full season under your belt, you're going to be ready to go.
So let me go through some of the notables here. Alec already laid out Team Sweden, so I can go ahead and skip across for them. But for Latvia, it's just the goalies. We know they're not going to be a strong team, but we do got some NHL netminders. Elvis Merzlikins of CBJ and Arthur Shilovs of Vancouver, who's currently participating in the Calder Cup Final. So that's for Latvia. At least their goaltending will be somewhat of a strength. Slovakia's got a decent roster as far as what they've announced for their first 6. Eric Chernak, Martin Fehervary, Simone Nemec, Marty Pospisil, Yaroslav Koski, and Tomas Tatar. Team Czechia, Lukas Dolstall. Alec, that's really cool to see him get the start for Czechia. It's Rajko Gudas, Marty Natras, Andre Palat, David Pastrnak, and Pavel Zacha. But for Dolstall, that's got to be a thrill for him. And I would imagine he's going to be ready to have to play goal and face a lot of shots because he's already used to that in Anaheim.
Yeah, he is. He's taken over the reins as Anaheim's starting goaltender. A Ducks team that's primed for playoff aspirations in getting Chris Kreider. But you imagine that Dostal is getting his first legitimate opportunity. If this could be an appetizer if the Ducks were to make a playoff push. We are yet to see what they would do in the offseason. But the start is Kreider. We wonder where Zegras is going to go. You want to stick with the current core, but you also want to build off of that. You already have some established veterans in Kreider, Alex Killorn, Frank Petrano, Ryan Strome. You got Jacob Trouba for the back-end defense and Radko Gudas, as we mentioned. You'd wonder where Anaheim's going to go from here on up.
And I'm not saying this now because Axel Sandin Pellikka still needs a lot of seasoning, but I imagine that future Red Wing is going to be playing a lot in Team Sweden, probably because of Benejad. In the expanded portions of the rosters, we'll see what their goaltending is going to be. But as Alec mentioned, alongside Sweden, they got a lot of really good players. They're usually the dark horse. I would say another dark horse usually gives United States trouble. Team Finland, Sebastian Aho, Alex Barkov, who we're watching today, We saw it a lot with the Dallas Stars, the Finnish Mafia. How about Miro Heiskanen, Esa Lindell, Mikko Rantanen, and Jussi Saros? Jussi Saros, usually one of the better goaltenders that we have in the league, but he really, really needs to rebound back for Team Finland and get his game back in form in winter 26, because he's one of the best goaltenders that we've got, but he's had a miserable year over the last year and a half.
Yeah, nothing went right for Nashville. Perhaps an international tournament could work best for Saros and the rest of the Predators, for him to get himself back up to speed and a chance to play with the Finnish Mafia. We don't know where Michael Granlund's going to go, but we imagine that Roope Hintz is going to be named onto the roster later down the line. Same for Granlund.
It's going to be a lot of Dallas Stars, a lot of chemistry. Jim Nill, as Alec and I mentioned, still has a lot of work to do in the offseason because of all the RFAs. So I know they got a good core in front of them. We also mentioned Jason Robertson, guys like that for Team USA. We think they're going to be there. Notables for Denmark, you got Oliver Bjorkstrand, Nikolai Ehlers, and Freddie Anderson to be in the back end of goal. Now, Alec alluded to this a little bit for Team Germany. You got Leon Draisaitl. We also got Tim Stützle, Morris Seider, and Philipp Grubauer has been announced for Team Germany. Now, Alec, admittedly, for the German goaltending situation, I'm not as aware, but Philipp Grubauer can be very hit and miss. So, I don't mean to be mean to Philipp Grubauer here. I'm surprised that he was already named so early.
Though, as we see in other international tournaments, that international tournaments is where we see other players step up their games when we don't know them that much. Such as the case 2 years ago when we saw France in the basketball gold medal game, that we saw the likes of Gurshan Yabusele, who wasn't in the NBA at the time, but he got the start over Rudy Gobert, and he meshed perfectly on that starting five. Evan Fournier was out of the NBA at that point as he was playing overseas, but he thrived on that French starting five with Victor Wembanyama and Yabusele. So maybe this is what Grubauer needs to be on the Olympic roster, because anything can happen if you're on the Olympic team when you're coached by a structure that benefits you.
That's a great point by you. Honestly, that makes me feel a little bit better for Philipp Grubauer, because I know he's got a really good game. I want to see him build on that from the Kraken and the former Av for Grubauer, because he's got some game. I want to see him do well. But you got Stützle, Moritz Seider, and Leon Draisaitl. I know they're not going to be completely top-heavy, but Alec and I mentioned this too. Pretty much adding J.J. Peterka to the list, because you're not walking away from 75, 80 points.
Yeah, you're not. Since we know about notables around, we think Peterka is going to be named to the German national team later. Lucas Reichel, we haven't seen a lot of him on the Chicago side, but he's one of their key pieces that they want to keep for defensive purposes. Nico Sturm, part of the taxi squad of the Panthers. He has been a healthy scratch throughout this series, but he's a reliable fourth-line center when needed. Switzerland, of course, we have the notables: Nico Hischier, Timo Meier, Jonas Siegenthaler, Kevin Fiala, Roman Josi, and Nino Niederreiter. Josi, of course, he's a reliable defenseman. We're not sure how further we can go. He's in his mid-30s, which is strange to see. But with Siegenthaler, of course, shutdown defenseman, you know what you're going to get from him. Hischier, you know what you're going to get from him, with him being one of the better two-way forwards in the game. Meier, net front presence. And he's thriving in New Jersey next to Hischier.
I kind of like that tandem of Nico Hischier and Kevin Fiala. You got defense and a lot of underrated goal scoring there for Team Switzerland. And you do have that Tom Fitzgerald GM New Jersey depth and alongside for the Swiss, so they should be getting used to playing with each other. And just one last note from me from this first intermission. By the way, if you're keeping score at home, the NHL draft 10 days away from today.
Don't forget about that. So we know that we're wanting to know who is going to be taken with the first overall pick. I think it's Matthew Schaefer, but we could see others that could be sliding up, like Michael Misa, James Higgins. And don't forget about other players that are part of this draft, like Porter Martone, Roger McQueen. They're a part of this.
I haven't seen Schaefer, admittedly, since World Juniors when he had that collision in with the elbow and behind the crossbar. But they were noticing then, in about, let's say, a year ago for Schaefer, that he was going to be a number one type pick. He's very, very good in his own end. He's also exceptional on the offensive end. I'm not going to say Evan Bouchard type for offense, but his defense is stout. And Schaefer could be really nice. And as Alec mentioned, with the the Islanders getting the number 1 pick. If you mesh him alongside with Noah Dobson, look, I understand they want some goal-scoring forwards, but if Schaefer can kind of go up the ranks quickly, and you have Dobson, and they perform the way that they do, the Islanders' blue line will be very, very good for years to come.
Yeah, if Dobson on one pair, I feel the ideal way is to split the 2 pairs up, unless if you want to have Schaefer learn from the system at first. You want to get coaches that benefit you, of course. Patrick Waugh, he knows what to expect of his guys. We saw from that one year where he took the Avalanche to the playoffs. Trying to have that same aim type of stuff with the Islanders. You bring back Kyle Palmieri. Now, this gets the question, what direction do the Islanders go in free agency? Do they go on a retool on the fly and move on from some of the bad contracts of Lou Lamoriello? Because that would be the ideal way. You want to move on from the bad contracts of Lamoriello. I'm looking at the Engvall and Mayfield contracts.
I know we don't have long to get into it now, but is there any thought in your mind that the Islanders might trade that pick?
The number 1 pick? I don't think they're getting out the number 1 pick.
Okay, I just want to throw that out there because there's a lot for them to do. You get set to take it in for the second, and I'll back you up. It's already a 2-0 lead for the Cats. They started well in the first. We know what we see in the second. I'm not quite ready to say that this game is over, but Alec, if the Cats immediately do get a third unanswered, I will say it's over.
Yeah, if it's a third goal, it's wraps from here. But then again, anything can happen, and the Oilers, they have played from behind for most of this finals. They have led for just 33 minutes. The Panthers have scored the last 9 first-period goals. We have yet to see a game-breaking individual performance from Connor McDavid yet in this finals, but here we go. Matthew Tkachuk has scored 3 times here at home in the Stanley Cup Final as the second period is underway. I'm Alec Nava, joined here by John Ott, as Darnell Nurse and Brett Kulak are all the way back in their own zone. Kulak having to evade Evan Rodriguez, the former Penguin. Right back for Sam Bennett, who tried to feed this one towards the front. The Panthers continuing to swarm the Oilers here, and that's been a common theme. Henrique gets it across for Kulak at the far corner. Back for Henrique. Henrique, he was shoved out the way. And this puck bounces off of Frederick and lofted onto Mikkola. Nico Mikkola clears this one all the way down. Nurse will begin at his own end. Rest of the game, it's been even in this goal-scoring differential. 12 goals for, 12 goals against for both teams. Shifting its way through is Kapanen. Kapanen of a high shot that's blocked away by Bobrovsky as lands out to near half boards. Kapanen swiping at it. Kasperi Kapanen coughed it up over to Sam Reinhart. Reinhart near the penalty box doors, swiped away by RNH. Yet to see what his injury diagnosis is, but it's clear that he is not at 100%. Klingberg got it directly onto Reinhardt's stick. With the far half boards, bounces up and collected by the Oilers at their own end. Lead pass for the far side. And overskating the puck was Kapanen. The Panthers tried to go back for Reinhardt. It's picked up by Dmitry Kulikov. Collected at the far half boards by Barkov. Watched by Klingberg. And Klingberg, he just took his man down WWE style. We stay 5-on-5. The officials were not there as Jake Wallman will fire this from the far side. The Oilers in a partial change. First one back is Schmidt right behind Bobrovsky's crease. Edmonton approaches onto of Corey Perry. The McDavid lines out there with Kulikov. Up the near side, Reinhardt that's deflected up. Barkov gets this deep. Evan Bouchard has had himself a miserable first period. Reinhardt tangles up Bouchard and escaping with McDavid and Ekholm. Matthias Ekholm leads it up. Through the middle it is Bouchard. Perry, he'll look at the far half boards around the net. Ekholm, right at near corner. Bouchard also there. Bouchard on the control. He'll leave this one for Perry and then back for Ekholm. Back around to the far corner. It's Draisaitl. Ekblad's on him. Leon Draisaitl can't get it by Lostarina, but it's fed to the front for McDavid. McDavid, what a move! Tried to slide it by Bobrovsky. He crossed off the right post. It's iced by the Panthers, but McDavid, he's at it again.
Oh, what a series of moves there toward the right side of the post. That was pretty good. As this goes down the middle of the year in front of me, so I'll go ahead and reset the feed. But McDavid finally gets some open space.
He does. As he slid it over Gustav Borzinger, tried to swipe this one away, and McDavid tried to bank it in tight angle. That was a beautiful move from McDavid.
Yeah, it was. They're going to need to see some more of that again as their team is down 2-0 fighting for their lives. Yes, Edmonton's been here before, but Florida loves to throw that vice grip. And
as Corey Perry got some chances, Bobrovsky turned all of them away. Back for Perry. Ekblad was on him towards that far corner. The Oilers dispossessed the puck. Oldest team in the NHL. This bounces up. Collected up by Edmonton near the penalty box doors. Here is Connor McDavid on 2-1. McDavid to Perry. Oh, what a big save by Sergei Bobrovsky at the far side. Rushing back is Ekholm. And a shot was stopped by Stuart Skinner as it exits out towards the mesh. Perry with a wide open look.
Oh my goodness. Officer Bob is on the case, as they love to say. That's a 2-on-0 setup. Bobrovsky has dead to rights with this cross pass, but he reaches all the way over. It looks like Perry might have just missed it, my friend.
Yeah, he did. As they got the replay, he's upset. Just missed a wide open goal for him. That's one that he's got to have on a silver platter. So the McDavid line gets back out onto the bench as Henrique wins this one, but it's controlled by Nosek. Behind the net, as it's controlled by the fourth line, AJ Greer spins out his man. Greer struggling to protect the puck as three Oilers are all over him. Gets his back left point as Mikko faked the shot. Backing around to the near corner as Seth Jones playing the puck to Jonah Gadjevich. We'll have to watch his status because he blocked the shot from Evan Bouchard that injured him. He did not practice the last 2 games. Greer ridden up the puck by Kulak. That allows Nurse to pick it up on his backhand. He'll carry this one out onto the far side. Set it up for Henrique. Henrique's shot and it's taken onto the chest of Officer Bob.
He's trying to get some wide open space now as Edmonton. That's my only concern if I'm a Florida Panther. A lot of chances off the rush with speed. Yes, I know Edmonton's noticing the desperation of the moment, but their offense is starting to pick up here. They just need some finishes.
6 different Panthers have at least 20 points. That's tied an NHL record with the 1985 Edmonton Oilers and the 1983 New York Islanders for the most players with at least 20 points. Lost Arena and Lundell are on the cusp, John.
There's a chance, as you said, between 19 and 18 from Lusto and Lundell that they could get to 8.
That could realistically happen because this third line has been so good. Off the draw, Kapanen goes back towards the point. Long shot blocked. Panthers trying to get out, but it's held in by the Oilers. Delivered directly onto Erod as he moves it up down the middle. Erod slowed down by Nugent-Hopkins in front as the shot was stopped by Stuart Skinner. No icing here as this will go all the way back towards the Panthers zone, collected by Nate Schmidt, who's filled in excellent as the replacement to Oliver Ekman-Larsson. Up the near side, Sam Bennett waits, looking for 16. Can't get it, wraparound try, second effort. Came out to the slot, Schmidt holds it, he fires, fought out by Skinner. Kapanen collects at the far side, but he's held up by Verhaeghe. Bennett goes back towards the left point. Mikkola thrusts one down deep for Verhaeghe. He gets shoved towards the boards. Same 5-on-5. Reinhart trying to get towards this puck as the Oilers play this one. Kapanen. Fans trying to serenade Stuart Skinner here. As the Panthers, they got some chance here in the second period. Held in by Evander Kane. Seth Jones is on him. Kane still chasing. Jones towards the left point. Reinhart with Ekholm on him. Matthias Ekholm trying to hold the zone. This bounces up towards the Edmonton zone. Off the penalty box doors. Leon Draisaitl trying to whack it in. Reinhart held his zone. And so of the Panthers as well, it's Bouchard towards Draisaitl. Draisaitl enters in. Barkov's behind him. Drops back for Ekholm. He walks. Bouchard fakes a slapper. This goes around the boards. He wanted to go for Draisaitl. Out there is Jeff Skinner as he's held down by Barkov as he is rid of the puck. Draisaitl goes down too along the far corner. Barkov takes it up as he's walking around the end boards. Ekholm trying to hold in, cannot, as the Panthers clear this one out. Bouchard walks his own zone. 5:20 gone in the second period. Florida leading 2-0. Ekholm fires inside. Up to the far corner. Bounced onto Draisaitl. Mikkola trying to hold on to it. Behind is McDavid. Chris Knobloch double shifting these two superstars. McDavid goes towards the right point where it's Kulak. Kulak towards the net. Rebound came loose. Nobody on Edmonton was there. It is now Sam Reinhart. He'll feed this one up. This bounces onto Skinner. Skinner has to get back towards his net. Well, the Panthers came close, but the Oilers keep this one out. Vasily Podkolzin gets this one deep, and this will be played at the far corner. Brad Marchand and Podkolzin ran into one another. Connor Brown towards the left point, holding his Nurse. Going back towards Brown. And a whistle here with 6:01 gone, and Nurse is a little upset.
I would imagine, as I'm watching some of this stuff, admittedly in the second period, Edmonton getting more chances. Florida's trying to defend their lead. Edmonton's spending a lot of extra time in this game doing their best to defend Brad Marchand, but everyone else in the Florida Panthers have been able to percolate, and alongside Reinhart and Tkachuk, double deflection goes off the left of the skate of Sergei Bobrovsky. He makes the save as we go to break.
It's one of those times where you imagine that whenever you shut down one or two players, then there's always another player that's going to step up for the Panthers in any regard. You take away Barkov and Tkachuk, here comes Marchand. You take away Marchand and Barkov, here's Tkachuk. Pick your poison.
Yeah, that's the beauty of this team, head coached by Paul Maurice, and their depth supplied by Bill Zito and the players and the will and everything. Florida's just so good across all four of their lines. That makes life so difficult to have to contend with. And I saw this question across the media, and I haven't asked you this, Alec, across throughout our series. Maybe we can have some more thoughts in the second intermission. But if you flip goaltenders and you put Stuart Skinner on Florida and you put Sergei Bobrovsky on Edmonton, would this be a different series?
You'd imagine so. If Bobrovsky was an Oiler and Skinner was a Panther, you would think that the Oilers would be ahead in this series. It's basically a huge what if. What if these two goaltenders were on opposite sides?
Yeah, the fact that you're bringing that up then again makes me believe that narrative a little bit more, because I'd have to think that Stuart Skinner could survive on Florida and they'd still win a cup, but I don't want to take anything away, and we're not, from what Sergei Bobrovsky is doing. He's been unbelievable. But I do say there's been too many breakdowns inside Edmonton's end. Yes, I know it always sounds like I'm making excuses for Stuart Skinner and Calvin Pickard, and you do want to have some extra saves, and you got to be around a 900 save percentage, but you can't have the catastrophic turnovers that you had today and expect to get bailed out.
We're looking right at Evan Bouchard in this regard, because that first period was miserable for him. Those goals that Skinner allowed, that's not his fault. We're looking right at Bouchard and having a bounce back for the rest of this game as the third line side is out there for the faceoff. It wasn't offside. Henrique wins it over to Kulak. Brett Kulak has this one deflect off a stick, and another offside as Trev Frederick slipped up. He's having himself a miserable finals.
Yeah, some of that depth on the third line side, especially between whether or not you throw Skinner in there, Henrique and Frederick. I don't think we see Jeff Skinner back into an Edmonton uniform, and the third line hasn't done enough for me. If I'm Connor Brown, that's really the only other guy on the bottom six that I feel confident in right now.
That fourth line seems to be doing a lot of the yeoman's work, and you wonder if Vasily Podkolzin is going to be elevated to third line next to Adam Henrique. Get a legitimate center as Jeff Skinner. He'll carry this one around. Nate Schmidt is all over him. Skinner, at that far corner, he is tied up. Jeff Skinner still surveying. His pass there set by Evan Rodriguez. Frederick trying to take back the puck for the Oilers. Good stick to keep it in, but it lands onto a Panther, and it will be backhanded deep. Swept away by Nurse. Glided down by Bennett. Over to Rodriguez, but that pass broken up at the near corner, and a big hit by Edmonton as Kulak will take it up towards the near side. Up at the far half boards, it is Mikkola at that far corner, trying to jumpstart the rush. Florida trying to get another chance here to go up 3-0. Carter Verhaeghe going across. Good stick by Perry to break up the pass for Reinhart. Barkov's down low. Barkov hounded right behind the net. Kulak was put on a swivel. Pass towards the right circle was intercepted. The Panthers look to get it back towards the slot. Held inside by Forsberg with a big blast. And Skinner gloved it down. 85 officially on the shot. He's one of those things that we could see for Team Sweden in the Olympics next year, John.
Absolutely, and again, that's what makes them so dangerous, because in my opinion, yes, I know he plays with the Florida Panthers. He probably is top three, if not even better, in terms of the NHL. Gustav Forsling does everything. Again, I have to remind everybody, he was a waiver claim.
So I know this may be a debate that I'm just asking now, but who would you rather between Jacob Slavin and Gustav Forsling?
I love Jacob Slavin. He probably is the best of the best when it comes to pure defense, but Gustav, I would say, is 1B.
The 1B, I can give you that with Gustav Forsling, because these two are the best of the best at their own end. Off the draw, towards the far half boards, as Lundell gets shoved by Bouchard, but quickly arriving is the Rat King, Brad Marchand. Forsling, watched by Kasperi Kapanen, two number 42s up against one another. Lundell. And Marchand is treating this third line as if he's playing next to Patrice Bergeron once again. With the way that they're all playing. Collected up by Lostarinen. Towards Marchand. Marchand gets one over towards the near side. Lundell centered up. And Skinner to save. The Oilers trying to help him out and covering it up. The Panthers holding the zone here as it comes to Bouchard at that far side. Held inside by Florida. Losterinen. Errant pass, and it'll go all the way down towards the Panther zone. Forsling wins the foot race, but Kane is there. He directs this onto Aaron Ekblad at the near corner. And we wonder what the free agent discussion is going to be for him. McDavid will drop it off. Pass all the way across as this goes to Ekholm. Takes a swipe at it. A bouncing puck is collected up by the Cats. Here is Bennett now towards the far side. Rodriguez races up to it. Through that near half boards. Tkachuk closed off by Perry. Pass meets present. As this is the near half boards. And we have a whistle as Tkachuk is down on his legs.
Hopefully Kachuk's okay. Yeah, he looks to be okay as we look on the other side. At this third line, we talk about the Florida Panthers maybe still coming into their own. I keep forgetting that this is Anton Lundell's only third season in the league. And then Losterinen is 26 years old with Anton Lundell being 23. And look at this third line. You add in Brad Marchand. We talk about him a lot. But it's really unfair when you talk about this team as a third line because they honestly could be as good as a number 2, maybe even a number 1 at times.
And reminder, John, Losterinen wasn't even the centerpiece of the return the Panthers got when trading away Vincent Trocheck. That was supposed to be Eric Haula. Up the middle as the Oilers are in the zone, but that's swept away masterfully by Sam Reinhart. What a season he's had defensively. Runner-up to Barkov and the Selke Trophy voting. Given that they are 1 and 2 in the Selke Trophy voting, it is appropriate that these two are the top 2 defensive forwards in the league by the Selke Trophy rankings. We can speak of Hischier. We can speak of the likes of everyone else that's been named to the Selke Trophy rankings because this team is elite defensively. Up the far boards, McDavid pursuing it, and it's played out by Florida, collected by Kulak. He fires this one around right onto Officer Bob. It'll be Jones collecting it up down the near side. It'll be John Klingberg after Lundell slipped. Klingberg gets it to RNH, and now it's Frederick. Trent Frederick towards the slot. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, and a setup pass from a sharp angle was deflected by Skinner. Bobrovsky saw it.
He's been on top of his game as it's been. We haven't had a chance to talk about Bob a lot because it's been about everything else. But he just continues to be the narrative throughout this series, one of the many. Just calm influence in the goaltending. He plays big, he stops the angles, and he just knows where the puck is pretty much before it's even launched half the time. That's why he's so good.
Oh, I'm having a habit of getting a Bobrovsky Patrick Waugh discussion, so I'm wondering who would be who between comparisons of this Panthers team and the Avalanche teams of those years past. Who would be Sakic? Who would be Forsberg? But I imagine it'll be a hard time. One-timer's blocked off the face-off. It's collected by Edmonton as Jeff Skinner got his stick lifted up by Erod. Bounced up onto Tkachuk. Through the far side. Tkachuk centers this one up. At the near side is Bennett looking for a 16th goal at the postseason. He holds. He fires. This bounces. Skinner holds it. With Tkachuk right in front. Sam Bennett still at 15 goals.
That's a big save with the partial deflection as Nate Schmidt trying to join on the fun. Evander Kane wants a piece of Tkachuk again. I imagine all he's going to do is smile with that side of the mouth guard. Another inside-out positioning for Sam Bennett. Again, I profiled that a couple times. I didn't realize he had that type of hands and setup there for Sam Bennett. I mean, he's made for playoff hockey.
Yes, he is. Sam Bennett, whoever's going to land him in free agency is going to get a playoff performer. However the contract value is going to go. He's not going to come in cheap. Oilers jump the face-off. They'll take it up. Janmark, he banked this one in off the near boards behind the line. The Panthers cleared out, though, and this will be tracked by Darnell Nurse at his own zone. Did not make the goal line to gain. Edmonton up the near side. Gadjevich is all over it. Jonah Gadjevich around Matthias Janmark. Gustav Forsling held it inside. It bounces up to the far half boards. Holding off one of the Panthers is Brett Kulak. Comes free. It'll come to Vasily Podkolzin down the near corner. Race for this puck. It will not be iced as it was short of the line of game for Dmitry Kulikov. Janmark going after it, so is Gadjevich. Down the far side, this bounced up, hit one of the officials with 9:28 to go in this middle stanza. Bounced up, and it will be collected by Nate Schmidt who hit a ground ball, or should I say ground puck, towards the second base side, or in this case, the goaltender side. Shot went wide, and we collected up by Ekholm. Backing around to the near corner is Podkolzin. Back up to the far side, where it is dropped back towards the right point. Bouchard lifted one up. Bobrovsky threw a screen, and Podkolzin, he wants to go after Dmitry Kulikov. Pushing and shoving it immediately. Devin Berg, one of the two linesmen, jumps in to break the two of them up, the other being Ryan Gibbons, separating Podkolzin from Kulikov.
I don't think Podkolzin really wants to go with Kulikov. It's more of a job, because if he's going to do that, he's probably going to lose that battle.
Oh, he is. And I know, a part of my mind was tempted to say on the Tkachuk goal, this one's for you, Johnny Hockey.
Oh, I mean, a lot of that's going to be going in the case if Florida wins again. They'll be thinking about it. Again, they talked about some of those in the pregame before on TNT. Of all the thoughts that Matthew still has for Johnny, same thing for Sean Monahan, all that. There's all the former Flames. They want to get this one done not only for themselves, but also for that, too.
Yeah, we mentioned Sam Bennett, a former teammate of Johnny Hockey in Calgary. They both know Johnny Gaudreau over their days with the Flames, and we wonder if this comes to if another comeback is being played, how many of those Flames teammates of Johnny Hockey show up to Rogers Place for Game 7?
We'll probably see a lot of that, or if not, when they lift the cup, when they have those celebrations, I bet a lot of those boys are going to be together when they bring the cup back out and have some fun with it during their vacation. I'm thinking a lot about this Florida Panthers team and the Edmonton Oilers, and you think about how good the Panthers might be in the pantheon of some of the best teams, as Alec mentioned, alongside the Red Wings, the Penguins, the Avalanche, the Blackhawks, and teams like that. But I thought the comparison that Alec made fittingly before between Forsberg and Sakic was interesting, because really, when you do look at this team, who would Matthew Tkachuk profile? I mean, he's probably closer to Forsberg because he's a lot more physical, but you mentioned it. This Panthers team and their physicality, this match is more along the lines of what we would see in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, and more of a line of that type of matchup, with one team focusing on grit and sandpaper, the other focusing on skill and creativity. So the Panthers, of course, being the 80s Islanders, the Oilers being, of course, themselves.
And I wonder, for Paul Maurice, and I might be saying this selfishly, he might be the best head coach of them all.
Yeah, right now, we compare this to the Islanders dynasty. How the comparisons between Paul? You can compare Paul Maurice to Al Arbor in this conversation.
Yeah, he's been transformational since they come over. Credit to Bill Zito again, first and foremost. But as we mentioned, Paul Maurice was not the sexy hire. And he comes over from the Jets, he gets his time, walks in here, and all of a sudden, it's the state of Florida dominating hockey.
Yeah, it's the Panthers are trying to move it up for the near side. The Oilers, they need something here. The goal scoring in the second and third periods has been even up at 12 apiece. Here is McDavid. Bobrovsky plays it free, starts to prevent him a chance. Edmonton has to wait, because if they cross the blue line, they will be offside. That's before McDavid, he exits out the blue line. Florida will take it up down the near side. Immediately McDavid trying to hold it. It's cleared out. Bouchard waits a bit at his own zone. Towards the far side, Perry gets it in. And down is Draisaitl with Forsling on his face. McDavid trying to knock this one free. Barkov, Draisaitl gets this one loose for Ekholm. Matthias Ekholm to Evan Bouchard. Flip-flopping. Bouchard throws one. Bobrovsky might have felt that hit him. Up the far boards. The Panthers trying to preserve this 2-0 lead. Here's a 3-on-2. Out on the far side, Reinhart goes across for Forsling. Doesn't shoot it. His shot is blocked, though. Going back in the near corner, it is Barkov. Barkov watched by McDavid. Centering pass was knocked away. Off a stick. It's play on to Skinner. Very auspicious look, but it went about 40 feet up in the air before it landed down.
Well, at least, for Skinner and Bobrovsky, they're doing an excellent job of tracking the puck. Because if I'm Bobrovsky on the other end, and I got McDavid peeling down on me in a one-on-one, he's feeling confident when he goes all the way out to play the puck off an outstretched pass, because if he doesn't, McDavid probably makes a move and ties this game.
Okay, so flashbacks of Bobrovsky's time in Philadelphia next to Brian Boucher. It's good of the TNT boys to reminisce about their playing days.
That's pretty cool considering where it's gone now. You can't imagine Bobrovsky's career arc would turn like this. Good for him.
And Skinner makes another save. It's nice the come up that Bobrovsky has. Vezina Trophy winning goaltender with the Columbus Blue Jackets. And from 2019 onwards, it's been up and down in the early years in Florida, but ever since, he solidified his spot in the Hockey Hall of Fame.
Yeah, it's no surprise when you start to lock up your offense, defense, you play with a structure, and you have strong goaltending on the back end. When they all go hand in hand, probably going to have some success.
Yeah, you will, with him playing the way that he has at the later years of Patrick Waugh that he is having. Not stolen away by the Oilers as the Panthers still handle this one at the Oiler blue line. They'll dump it onto Skinner. He's out of his net. Lundell almost pointed up onto the left point where it's carried by Mikkola. A shot. Friendly fire as what the Panthers was down. Wallman overskate the puck. Direct onto the far outboards for Erod. Walking Klingberg fires. And another stop by Skinner. The puck came free. The officials lost track of it. And now they see it. But not before pushing and shoving between Frederic and Rodriguez.
Yeah, no surprise. Rodriguez got clipped in the face there from Frederic in the mix. You don't like anybody touching their goaltender. But that is what happens when the refs do lose sight of the puck. They're going to have to force to take Skinner and take a couple more whacks. And we'll see if that draws any more ire as we go along.
Oh, that might have bounced off Wallman and then landed right onto Stu.
I hope it didn't hit Wallman in the nether regions again because he's already had that happen to him a few times. This one got him in the knee.
Oh, that's one of the unpadded areas of any hockey player. Not an area where you want to block a shot. Tkachuk for Bennett, and it's one-timers blocked. Kulikov keeps it in. Intended for Tkachuk, Kulak cut off the pass. Former teammates in Calgary as it's shifted up, broken up, and the Panthers will walk back in. Here's Bennett. Looking towards Tkachuk, the pass was broken up. Probably should have shot that one. Probably get a deflection from Evan Rodriguez. Towards the near corner as the Oilers want to play it out. Schmidt held it in. The deflection didn't go as Nurse is pursuing. Rodriguez for Bennett. To that far corner. Towards the near outboards. Tkachuk waits. Holds. Hit the backboards. Nurse controlling. On his back end. Moves it up onto the far side. It's carried on by Kulak. Bennett still pressuring. Right behind it as it's moved up for Vander Kane. Ekblad held it for a moment. It gets bounced down. Reinhart collects in his own zone. Sam Reinhart. Evander Kane holds his own. Aaron Ekblad tracking this one. Back behind is Kulikov. Kulikov. Reinhart tried to clear. Goes back for Kulikov one more time. Draisaitl pursuing. And it goes down all the way onto the Edmonton zone. And the Panthers do a good job not icing it. 5:55 left in the second frame. No goals since the first period when Tkachuk scored. What will McDavid do with this puck? He'll deliver it onto the near side. Lost it as Reinhart was chipping away at it. Matthias Ekholm, watched by Carter Verhaeghe at the near corner. Now it's McDavid again. Rink wide for Bouchard, and then fed back up. It's deflected, and it hit the backboards. Back onto the near side, cleared out by the Cats. Bouchard tried to hold off. Yeah, Luostarinen, he had a step ahead of him. Yes, icing.
So again, we're going to look on the YouTube side. I got that back and going. Again, it's been bouncing all over the place. So hopefully, Alec, I've been able to stay with you. I apologize for the first 4 minutes or whatever it was in the first. I got everything on the recorder on my end. So when this all gets uploaded, we're in a good spot. And as it is, if Florida wins the Stanley Cup tonight, we're going to stay with you a little bit extra and get the ceremonies across, per usual.
Yeah, of course, the festivities, the celebrations. And of course, with Edmonton playing from behind again, the Panthers, they're a team that likes to defend when they have a lead. And they're the best closers in the league at doing so. Not bothered by the 2 blown leads that they had of two goals and 3 goals in games 1 and 4. Trying to check in with the clock operators because no puck has been dropped yet.
Yeah, and as you said, between the Florida Panthers, I think between all the greatest teams as we've talked about, the mind control and the pace and everything else that they have, that's no question to Paul Maurice. Nothing bothers them, no matter the situation. Looks like 5:27 left to go in the second as they got to get Sam Reinhart back on the ice. Now, if there was a little bit too much extra of this, the refs could call penalties if they want to, but they usually don't.
Yeah, because Reinhart was on the ice at the time of the icing. Up the far side, Luostarinen. So now Barkov and Reinhart go for the changes. Marchand's on the ice. He was initially out there for the faceoff at the defensive end. but he had to get back to the bench because he was not there on the time of the icing. Florida can't keep the zone as it's moved up by Draisaitl. Bounced up off of one of the Panthers, and then back is Lundell. Overskate the puck as Ekholm held him off. Collected up by Draisaitl, bumped onto the boards. Edmonton moving it up. Too far for Ekholm. And it'll be the Panthers. Can't handle it. Ekholm will take it back. It'll be Bouchard. Panthers make their changes. The Oilers also making their changes. 4:40 left in this middle frame. Panthers leading 2-0. It'll be Ekholm. Through that near side. Bounces up. Bobrovsky plays out to the far corner. Mikula got bumped. On that far corner side, down goes one of the Oilers. Left it for Wallman. Wallman waits. His shot's blocked. Wide open in front. And close up was Corey Perry by Mikula. As he was tangled up on the shot attempt. Good job by the Panthers on the net front scramble. Now it's a board battle on this scramble. Janmark see it go free as Florida clears it out. They do a good job not icing this as they make it all the way onto the Oiler blue line. All the way across for Wallman as the Oilers make their changes. Wallman gets it in deep onto the far corner. And it's caught by Bobrovsky with exactly 4 minutes to go. Talk about him playing center field that time.
Yeah, a little pop fly able to fall into his glove from 100 feet. You talk about maybe one possible breakdown here for the Panthers in this period, no matter. Kachuk trying to get a piece of the shot block. This goes off his skate, and as you beautifully profiled toward the right post as we go to break, Mikula off the tie-up, probably then saves a goal there too. Panthers, even when you think that they're beat, they're not. They're able to get the cover there and get this one down the ice and go to break.
That's what I love about Paul Maurice hockey, that he knows he out to get the best out of his players on the defensive end. Carolina knows this, and Winnipeg knows this. Carolina made the Cup Finals off of his system, with Rod Brindamore, Ron Francis, Glenn Wesley being the headliners. Of course, with Winnipeg, you think of the lines of Kyle Connor, Mark Scheifele, Josh Morrissey, and a prime Dustin Byfuglien, and Connor Hellebuck providing excellent goaltending on the back end.
Yeah, there's been a lot of good systems there that you're right, that have been instilled from Winnipeg to Florida now. Kind of get that culture, the belief, and the buy-in from everyone. That's what you've seen. So the number 16, admittedly, on team stats, you should go out there and buy a lottery ticket. Shots, hits, and face-offs won. That's the number for the Cats. The Oil lead the shots 19-16 and face-offs 18-16. But again, no power play opportunities for either squad. We mentioned just the offsetting 4-on-4 from where we are in Game 6. I don't think power play is going to be a factor unless it's a puck over glass or something egregious. It's going to have to be played 5-on-5. And the Panthers have been able to take the second period. Yes, they gave up some chances early off some odd man rushes and some rushes down the ice in general, but they've been able to hold this 2-0 lead in ways. This looks a lot like Game 5.
It does. With how it's a slow, tight, defensive, grueling battle. That's how the Panthers want to play this game, to wear the Oilers down, and they're better conditioned at doing so.
So only if we need a Game 7. That'll be 8 Eastern. Again, we'll be on the air about 8:10 if the Oilers come back. If not, it'll be NBA Finals at around that same time as they'll go back to Indiana, the Gainbridge Fieldhouse. You take it away.
There have been 9 multi-goal comebacks when facing elimination in Stanley Cup Final history. The last such instance was the 1987 Philadelphia Flyers against the Edmonton Oilers. The Oilers are the ones facing elimination, and they're down by multiple goals. Rink-wide pass bounced off one of the Oilers, and it'll get this down. Will this go to Bobrovsky? Yes, it will, so no icing. 3:25 to go here, and it'll be let up. Down the middle by Forsling. This bounced up off of Reinhart, with Kulak tying him up. Kulak shoved him towards the boards. Verhaeghe's also out there. Can't get the puck, but this bounced up at the near half boards. Over to Kulikov, while Reinhart gets shoved by Frederick. Down the near side, Reinhart held his own. Kulak having some trouble with it. Jeff Skinner hounded by Kulikov. The Panthers putting the Oilers on a headlock at this offense's own time. Reinhardt's behind that. He gets tied up. Barkov in front. Had a prime scoring opportunity. Couldn't finish it. Barkov hounded by Henrique. Behind the net and then spinning again. Barkov trying to get it out. He does for Verhaeghe. Nurse and Kulak have been out there for a long time. They're dead tired. They need to get a change. But they can't now because Barkov and his line are toying with them. At the near quarters, Verhaeghe. 2-time Stanley Cup champ. Oh, Skinner had to make a Diving save and he score! On the rebound! Jumping onto his Barkov for his first 5-on-5 goal at the final!
That's fitting, Alec. Again, he was the one to the right side red line with a beast. All sorts of puck possession. You mentioned it alongside Nurse and company. They just couldn't get off the ice. This would be the one time that we can punch the button where TOI made a big difference, and puck possession made a big difference because they were dead tired. They were left skating all over the place. And as we take a look at this now, Verhaeghe off the rim around, this puck eventually going to bounce back in off the backboards, and Barkov is going to be able to get a cash deposit in toward the right side dot. Again, nothing Stuart Skinner is going to be able to do. This one actually, I think, bounces off a Reinhardt's skate if we look at it.
Oh, man. Sam Reinhart could be the first player ever to score back-to-back series-clinching Stanley Cup winning goals in the final if this result holds up. The Oilers, they've known how to play from behind, but if you keep playing from behind for too long, you're going to run out of gas, and we're seeing it right now. The Oilers are running out of gas, and it's unfortunate because we wonder what could have been, and there's a pass that went outside the zone as Bouchard, he had his stick right behind, and this puck is play, but we're seeing it right now. Of course, we'd wonder, what would happen if Zach Hyman was healthy? We'd imagine that it could be a 7-game series at the maximum, but with the way the Panthers are playing defensively, I feel even if Hyman was healthy, I don't know if the same result is going to happen.
No, and it makes me feel foolish in the preview show that I even picked the Oilers in 6. Again, I was trying to give them a ton of credit because after games 1 and 2, we saw some of the best hockey we've ever seen, admittedly, Alec. But as this series has worn down, the grindstone has been called against the Oilers, and they have no answer for what the Cats have been able to provide.
For what we saw after Game 5, McDavid looked dejected, and that really was not a good sign after what happened in Game 5. The mental toll of the battle, because you're sick of losing to the same team in back-to-back years. And in Florida, where this team has had your number over in past games, ouch.
Take it away. You got about 1:45 left as Bobrovsky has a hold him to get some more pushing and shoving.
Yeah, Jeff Skinner, he was getting tangled up in the action, more pushing and shoving, and Matthew Tkachuk does have some warts. What we're hearing from all angles of the behind the scenes is that this is the most curse wars that we've seen in behind the scenes looks in the Stanley Cup Final that we've seen. So uncensored, my goodness, we can only imagine what it's going to be looking like with the behind the scenes look uncensored.
You remember a couple of games ago when Cooper Hopkins was with us and we had all those fights and he mentioned that it looked like a airplane with the players going back in the tunnel? That was probably the most curse words that we've gotten. These two teams, they really don't like each other.
They really don't. As the puck is iced, we're seeing a rivalry being developed here between these two. And of course, if one team wins most of the time, but you're having this be competitive, you're still calling it a rivalry when you have both teams hate one another. The Oilers are tired of losing to the Panthers. And we don't know if we're getting the same matchup next year. We don't imagine the Oilers returning it back here next year as this is iced once again. But if in the event the Oilers make it back here later the McDavid era, it's going to take several years. And perhaps it's going to be a wait basically of similar lengths to how Lionel Messi was with Argentina in the FIFA World Cup, where he finally got his chance with the best team ever assembled around him when he had the likes of Lautaro Martinez, Julian Alvarez, Angel Di Maria, and Emi Martinez around him.
See, you brought that point up a couple times already, Alec, and I don't disagree with you. I think that's what it's going to have to take because we'll have a discussion about it in the second intermission, but this really does feel like Edmonton's last best shot.
Yeah, it feels like it too. With this current core, we didn't think they were going to make it back here. And the fact that and you know what? I'm not going to weigh in too much of them, and I'm not going to knock them down because we thought that the Kings would have their number in the first round, John.
Yes.
But the fact that they made it back here in the Stanley Cup Final in a year where I had them exiting in the first and second rounds, the fact they made here, I got to give marks to them. And you know, one day, if they do make it back here, and perhaps it would be a run where they're going to have to be a better team. Somebody is going to be taking up the front office, and they're going to have their work cut out for them. We don't know what Stan Bowman's going to do in the offseason, but based on experience, that's not necessarily a good thing if Stan Bowman is the GM, just given and what Chicago went through in the later years. The Panthers trying to get a fourth goal of Sam Reinhart. He's going to look on the way back onto Forsing. He fakes the slapper. And back it around. Seth Jones, who has 4 more years after this year on his current contract. That's excellent to have if you're Florida. But with Aaron Ekblad a free agent, do you go after someone like Rasmus Andersson as this is iced again? And don't forget, people need to remember that next year is a contract year for Niko Mikkola.
We're going to have more of those conversations. I'm glad that you're bringing them up, but at the same time, if you're an Oilers fan, you don't want to be thinking about all of that right now, but it is really what we're seeing. The Florida Panthers, not just because they're winning 2 cups in 3 years, but I think we've seen it over the last several now. They're the class of the league, and it's not close.
And we speak of Lionel Messi and teammates. There's one of them in attendance, Drake Callender, the goalkeeper for Inter Miami. We wonder if Messi's going to attend a Panthers game, because one time he attended a Heat game, and the Panthers won that same day. Wondered, is Messi going to attend a Panthers game? We'd imagine sometime soon, because I want to see Lionel Messi attend a Panthers game. Maybe at their home opener next year? The clock is going to run out here to end the second period. It is 3-0. Reinhart off the shot from Barkov that bounced off of his leg. If this holds, the Panthers are in line for their second straight Stanley Cup.
Hey there, fellas. I am sorry. I am super late. I had a task that took me way longer to do than I thought, but apparently it's been the same script.
Yeah, it has, from Game 5 and Game 6, and I'm not saying that Alex already written the eulogy for the Edmonton Oilers, but he was already breaking down some possible off-season moves. That's what you have to do when it's a 3-0 lead for the Cats after 40.
Yeah.
I mean, what else are you going to do? Because you know what? He started writing the eulogy. It was complete. For me, it was complete after the first period. Once Edmonton was held scoreless in the first, that's when I just shake my head, and I start playing the Coffin song. If you guys are familiar with meme culture, you know which one I'm talking about. I should say the dancing Coffin song.
The pallbearers. Yes, that one.
Yeah, that one.
I know it's easy to say now, and I do want to make a point in the second period as well, but when you look at Adam Manrique, Jeff Skinner, Trent Frederick, Matthias Janmark, Vasily Podkolzin, and Connor Brown, and you compare that to Lundell, Lustarin, Marchand, Nosek, Greer, and Gadjevich, I mean, that's not close in terms of bottom 6. I know we didn't say that throughout the series, but you really have to punch the button that way. Evan Bouchard, as you mentioned, did not do himself any favors. And Connor McDavid, with Tom Draisaitl, to Ian's point that he's made a couple times, I think they can only do so much. It's really hard for Connor McDavid to be that game breaker he's supposed to be when you always got 3 or 4 cats in your face. But the one point I want to make, whether the puck goes around the boards or not, when it's Sergei Bobrovsky and the Florida Panthers, it's quick east-west, left to right, or what have you. Every time the Oilers get this stuck on their own end, it always seems like the Cats are back there behind the net. They're bothering Skinner, not being able to get the puck out clean. The forecheck has been unrelentless, and the plays are getting stopped before they even get started.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, it got... Fellas, remember the point I made at the end of Game 5 when I was talking about those 2010 Blackhawks teams? This is the Florida Panthers are basically a mirror image of that. Let me spell it out. You got your top guys. You got... If for a Kane and Taves, you have a Kachuk and whoever is his primary. You know what? Let's just go ahead and say it's Sam Bennett. You have Kachuk and Bennett, right? For the old guy, the Blackhawks had Miriam Hossa. This Florida Panthers team, well, they got a couple of old guys. They got Barkov and they have Marchand.
Yep, I was thinking more of Marchand for this year, Tarasenko last year.
Right. And, your goalie, look, before the injuries, Corey Crawford was darn near unbeatable. And Bobrovsky looks to be as such.
Boys, I'm looking at this on the Puckpedia side now. If you please jump in when I throw some of this stuff out there. But looking at what the Florida Panthers potentially getting 2 cups in 3 years with one more period left to go, doesn't look like they have a lot to do unless they're going to address their bottom sixes. You know that they will. But all of their main guys are signed. Barkov, 29. Kachuk, 27. Reinhart, 29. Verhaeghe, 29. As you mentioned, Lundell, 23. Sam Bennett, again, really the only other ones as we've talked about at length. Seth Jones, only 30. Gustav Forsling, 29. Sergei Bobrovsky, yes, 36. We'll figure out what happens after next year. But their main players, Alec, are signed, and they're still within the primes of their career. It's not impossible to say, even with all of the hockey they've already played over the last 3 years, that the Panthers could do this again.
It's not an exaggeration, though at the same time, you ideally are going to have to keep one of Bennett or Ekblad. Let's assume they keep Marchand on a 1-year deal. Let's say he signed for $4 million. And now you are the dilemma. Do you choose Bennett or do you choose Ekblad? I feel with Bennett, it's a little easier because you keep your core guys, you keep him around over for the future playoff hunt. Ekblad, I feel he's going to test the market in any case. Mikla, I feel he can get an extension if everything proceeds nicely down the line. So you have to go for a right shot defenseman. I did bring up Erik Karlsson in Game 5, but that's going to be more complicated because you want to get a third team for double retention given his $10 million cap hit. Ideally, if you want just a straight-up trade between 2 teams, Rasmus Andersson's available. He may be taking some offers for teams that are looking to make the playoffs. But if I'm Bill Zito, I'm calling Calgary for Andersson's services. You can get him for just 50% of his cap hit, and you don't have to give up too much. If say if you were to get him, you're gonna have to attach a pick. Could that do the trick for Andersson, or do you? I know Mackie Samoskevich hasn't played a lot in this postseason, but if you were to send someone the other way, could Samoskevich get an extended look with the Flames?
I think that's all well and good of all the names that you've thrown out there between Karlsson or Rasmus Andersson, because that makes a lot of sense to me. And I agree with you. I'm not saying Aaron Ekblad's not worth it, but for Sam Bennett, you don't want to take away the grit and the sandpaper, the goal scoring, everything else. He kind of seems the lifeblood of how you play games in the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs. He's going to be pricey, but I think he's worth it. And considering what they've already done with guys like Nate Schmidt, Dmitry Kulikov, Nico Mikkola on these low cap hits, I think that they can get by there alongside Bill Zito and get the job done. So I'm holding on to Bennett, and I'm going to say goodbye to Aaron Ekblad.
That's how I'm going with. And then in saying goodbye to Ekblad, you say hello to Andersson in that case. You can shift Andersson as the top pair next to Forsling or on the second pair next to Mikkola. Between him and Jones, you wouldn't be wrong, but because Jones has been a natural fit next to Forsling and Mikkola.
I know you mentioned this a little bit for the Edmonton Oilers and toward the end of the second period, but let's talk about it now, Alec, because the writing seems to be on the wall. I do not see the Oilers finding a way to score 3 unanswered goals in time and denying the Florida Panthers. What do they got to do to get back here again and maybe win a Stanley Cup?
Step 1, you trade Darnell Nurse. That's first and foremost. He has 5 years left of his deal, but you need to trade him off somewhere to a team that's actually willing to take on his contract. Ideally, you want to have it be a team that's rebuilding right now. That's why I brought up Chicago in that regard. But it's going to take a return here on the other hand. That's why I also brought in Ilya Mikheyev. if Connor Brown were to test free agency. They're around the same age range, but nonetheless, if Edmonton were to do the impossible, make it back here, you get Mikheyev in a hypothetical trade scenario between him and Nurse. You also have to have your work cut out for you, as Evander Kane's on the last year of his current deal. Hyman's going to be 34 next year. McDavid's going to be a free agent in 27, but I imagine he's going to stay in Edmonton in any regard. But it's going to be tough. You're going to have to you're going to have to get outside the box and be creative with some of your moves. I don't know if Trent Frederick is going to return, but you could swing out a trade or two. You couldn't get Kreider. So you're not able to get Kreider now because you're playing in the finals. But if any case, if Kreider is available at the deadline, if Anaheim is struggling to keep afloat in their playoff hopes, probably you could ask for Kreider's services from Anaheim. Then again, the Oilers and the Ducks have had a history of trading with one another. They did this with Adam Henrique and Sam Carrick last spring in getting both of their services. But I feel Kreider could be a starting point. If not, could it be Rickard Rakell?
It's interesting that you bring that all up now because I'm looking at across Puckpedia and you nailed it. I'm looking at the ages. I didn't realize they were as elder statesmen as they were. I guess it's kind of unfair when you look at the Florida Panthers on the other end. You see their talent in the prime of their careers. And you look at this, it's completely different. But Matthias Janmark, 32, Henrique, 35, Arvidsson, 32, RNH, 32, Hyman, 33, Kane, 33. Hyman and Nugent-Hopkins are really on decent cap hits at 5.1 and 5.5. But you got that big, and it's not even an albatross. You got Leon Draisaitl at $14 million and Connor McDavid at $12.5 for one more. I mean, you're going to have to look at Connor McDavid saying, if I want $17 million, you're going to have to find a way to give it to him.
So, guys, I just thought of this. If they can work around the cap, so we always talk about the depth, outside of Draisaitl and McDavid. Who else is there? If I'm the Oilers and I'm able to do it, free up the cap, and I know this is based on one good season, see if you can find a way to get Ryan Donato.
I love that. If you want to get him over at the second line or maybe the third line side, because contract negotiation between him and Chicago have not been progressing. You want him on a middle six side, and that would be someone that I would love to see it to add to the Oilers on the middle six. And also, if you want to inject some youth, do you give a full season to Matt Savoie on the third line or line side?
If you're going to have to try to make the cap work, Alec, you're going to have to, because you're going to need those low amount of contract totals in order to kind of balance out the rest of the cap. But I'll be honest with you, in terms, as you mentioned and Ian mentioned, Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl comprised for $26.5 million between the two up until 2026-27 next year when McDavid's going to be due his extension. It's not like these guys are making a lot of money on the other end. Hell, you're even just with Darnell Nurse for next season, you're only paying $23.4 million across the rest of your defense, and your goaltending is only making $3.6 million. I know Stuart Skinner and Calvin Pickard are only signed for one more year, but at some point, I'm tired of having the conversation between those two. And I'm tired of having the fans continue to defend those two, as I've done throughout this game. So I'm guilty because some of that hasn't been their fault. We need to go out and get somebody.
Yeah, because, Skinner Pickard have been good enough to steal games. But you need to have a true game breaker in net.
Yeah.
That mean, and we brought up John Gibson's name time and time again. Do you go to Anaheim to get a guy like Gibson? And how much? And do the Ducks retain salary in a Gibson trade? So if not Kreider, do you go with Gibson? Also, what's going to be the return for Gibson?
Just one last thing for me, because I'm looking at it. So the buyout, Jack Campbell, he's got a $1.5 million buyout until 2030.
Between this upcoming season is going to be 2.3 million. Then the next is going to be 2.6 million. Not good. That's not bad. But you want to have more cap space ideally. Well, it's not going to be a significant factor to it. Not like what we saw from the Parise and Suter buyouts with Minnesota.
Right.
So fellas, a thought just occurred to me. So the Vancouver Canucks are quite possibly headed toward an off-season of turmoil, right? Besser could be gone. Pedersen's Pedersen is not happy. Is not happy. As people would say, the vibes are not good right now. My question is, do you think the Oilers, because I don't know all the contracts, do you think the Oilers could somehow swing for a Thatcher Demko?
So long as he's healthy, such a trade could work. But it all comes down to his health at the end of the day. But when he's healthy, he can steal games.
I'm looking at this now, admittedly, Alec, again, he's only signed for this year. That's why they gave Kevin Lankinen the extension that they did. I think the $4.5 million is not a bad cap hit for Kevin Lankinen, all things considered, Alec. But I think they did that knowing that Thatcher Demko might not be there after next year.
That could be a big case. Now, I know this may be pertaining to another sport, but I saw on the College World Series side that there's a pitcher that just hit a 19 strikeout no-hitter during the College World Series tournament. Gage Wood, he's going to be a first-round talent in the upcoming MLB draft. 19 strikeout no-hitter. We have not seen that in a long time.
I mean, 19, Jesus, we haven't seen an MLB pitcher throw anything close to 19 strikeouts since the famous, was it Mark Pryor or Kerry Wood? Help me out here.
It was one of those boys for sure. You got the names right.
Oh, I think it was Wood.
Because I know when Max Scherzer went up against his former team in the Tigers, he was well in the 20s.
Oh, that is historical. Oh, that's a historical basis. We speak of history being made. Oh, Gage Wood, and already there's some shirts out there that are called No Maha because of the no-hitter. That's creative.
Good. Honestly, I think that kid. I don't know if he's going into the draft or not, but if he is, after say Nebraska wins the College World Series outright, I don't know if they're still in or if they're eliminated or what, but say they win outright on the back of a performance like that. Do you see the kid going anywhere except number one overall? I mean, let's be realistic.
I mean, his draft stock's going to be rising, but for your information, he plays for Arkansas, but nonetheless, his draft stock is going to go up after a performance like that, and more teams are going to pay attention to him, envisioning him as a future pitcher that they could utilize on their rotation.
In Arkansas now is currently up 5-0 against UCLA, which is the 15th seed. Razorbacks are the 3rd seed. And Wood is only a junior, so even if he wants to, he could go back to school.
He wants to, but one more thing before we get this over to the third period is that 2 nights ago, the Oklahoma City Thunder handed the Pacers their second consecutive loss. That's the first time the Pacers have been on a losing streak in 3 months. At the Thunder, we know about what the scoring differential can be. The Pacers, of course, they have the edge in the fourth quarter throughout the first 3 games of this finals. But things have started to turn the tide here. TJ McConnell was lights out in that third quarter. But something's up with Tyrese Halliburton. He had 4 points, but he played the majority of Game 5 injured.
Yeah, I saw, what was the stats? He almost got bageled, Alec, and it did not look good. And yet, Indiana didn't lose by a ton. I don't know if that's going to be enough headway to stop the Thunder from winning before the weekend. But, man, oh, man, you don't see those type of performances from him very often.
No, you don't. But Jalen Williams, on the other hand, 40 points on the night. And you could realistically see him potentially stealing Finals MVP from Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Third period is underway, and the Panthers 20 minutes from their second consecutive Stanley Cup, trying to win it at the same ice where they beat the Oilers last year. The fans serenading Stuart Skinner as it's Carter Verhaeghe who holds. Verhaeghe, go move it with FR outboards. Looking to go down low to Barkov. Bouchard tying him up. And the Panthers, they have a 13-12 goal edge between the second and third periods of this finals. 13-4 in the first period. That's been the main difference. Who has the stronger start is the big difference. It's Ekholm's shot is blocked. Of course, he talked about ferocious defense. Paul Maurice being the best coach in the business right now. We'll see at the far side. Matthias Ekholm delivers it to Evan Bouchard, who is pile-driven towards the wall by Marchand, who I feel is now the favorite for the Conn Smythe Trophy, and he should be. 6 of his 10 goals that he scored have come in the Stanley Cup Final. That's the most since Esa Tikkanen had the same number in 1988 with the Edmonton Oilers. Moving up for the middle as the Oilers trying to drive this one back. And a very curious offseason for the Oilers approaches as Wallman sends one right off of the pads of Big Bob. Back over to Klingberg, across for Wallman again. That's blocked in front by guess who? The Rat King. At the far side, it'll be the Oilers going up and around. Behind the net, it's Kapanen. Kasperi Kapanen spins around Anton Lundell, who is putting him on a headlock. Unbelievable team defense of the Panthers as this cannot be held by Klingberg in the zone. Wallman. Jake Wallman holds the puck and he'll go to Klingberg. Klingberg can't get it by Bennett. Will loft this back onto his own zone. For the far side, Klingberg. John Klingberg up the far end. And now the near end is Janmark. Sent it in deep. Kulikov chases after the puck. This bounces onto the far corner. Matthew Tkachuk. Chased by Matthias Janmark. Frees it up for Bennett. Looking for goal number 16. Shot one from distance. Never made its way towards Skinner. In the far corner. This bounced onto Evan Rodriguez, who can't fire it because he was tied up. For the near side, it'll be Edmonton moving up. Far boards as Janmark braced himself for the hit from Kulikov. Came out onto the right side for Brett Kulak. Kulak lifted one wide, and it'll be collected up by Darnell Nurse. Nurse will start up. Going near side. Past 2 Panthers, and it'll be Gustav Forsling. Shoved towards the wall, Aaron Ekblad. We'd wonder if this is final game as a Panther, as he is their other big name free agent. Sam Bennett's the obvious. As Bouchard backhands it away onto Ekholm. Lifted by Verhaeghe. Ekholm wants to get this one through to Bouchard. Barkov relentlessly pursuing the puck. This is Patrice Bergeron-esque from Barkov. He's relentlessly chasing pucks left and right, and he has a relentless motor. We don't imagine him stopping anytime soon. Forcing through one towards the goal. It's collected by Barkov. Can't wait to watch him for Team Finland in the Olympics. Bouchard towards the near side. It is McDavid. He got his trophy in the Four Nations face-off, but he wants a Stanley Cup. We don't imagine that happening, but any trophy you can get, I guess. Back towards the point as the pass for Ekholm was missed. Bouchard over to McDavid. For that near corner, going back over to Ekholm. Bouchard a one-timers, kick, save, and a beauty by Bobrovsky. He's had many beautiful saves so far in this Game 6. McDavid, he'll fire himself. That took a block right onto the mesh. What a beautiful individual performance from Bobrovsky. This is reminiscent of Game 7 of last year.
Yeah, I know you talk about it a lot, and I agree with you boys. In the mix is Sam Bennett, Brad Marchand, but Sergei Bobrovsky is low-key of a performer Conn Smythe throughout this entire series. He has been the mainstay. With some good puck movement, but again, Edmonton kept on the outside. One of the passes in the middle of the slot from McDavid went wide. I like to see McDavid shoot that puck, though. If they're going to go down, I want to see him shoot some more before this game is done.
You go down with a fight. It's what you want to see if you're the team that is on the other end. I know the Oilers are trying to mount a comeback, but we know that's increasingly getting fleeter and fleeter is fleeting from their vision. Another comeback. Up the far boards. 4 minutes gone here in period number 3. Panthers lead the clincher 3-0. And it's down for Stuart Skinner. Sam Reinhart with 2 goals in this game. One of them on a Barkov shot. This may be one of the best games that Barkov has played in his career. It'll be out from Bobrovsky to Nate Schmidt. Up the far boards. This bounces up. Schmidt escapes the pass. Onto the near side. Collected up by Kapanen. Kasperi Kapanen. Greer sticked it away. Onto the right point. Kulikov kept it in. Onto the far corners. Played out onto the far half boards. Lofted this one up. It's bounced up when the Oilers went down. Staying 5-on-5 here. And Skinner played this one out. Nosek held this one inside. Darnell Nurse on the far half boards. Jeff Skinner clears. Race for this puck. Forsling held off his man. The puck came free. A backhander. Good job by Forsling to not give RNH any room to shoot. Nosek forced him off the puck. He pays the price though. And Florida will clear this one out. Jeff Skinner is the first one to this puck. And Loki makes me sad because if the Oilers were to have won the Cup, I would have wanted to see Jeff Skinner get the first handoff from Connor McDavid. For the far side, RNH shoved away by Sam Bennett. Up the far boards as Bennett escapes with the puck. Not out. Now finally it is. On this foot race, Bouchard beats out Tkachuk. But as it bounced off of Ekholm and then Bennett. Towards the near corner, Bouchard takes a bump. Towards the near side, Mikula goes back down deep. Rodriguez holding his zone on his back end. Will flutter it around for Bennett. Reinhart sets up at the net. He comes behind and as Bennett got to him, Ekholm gave him no room. With about 6 minutes to go, Connor McDavid trying to get the through puck towards the right side. Return feed. That was a circus act of a shot from McDavid. You know, he's making it look routine. McDavid at the far corner. He's going to look back towards the left point. He's broken up and backing around for Draisaitl. Beyond Draisaitl's sharp angle. Can't make this completed up. With the far half boards, this bounced up. Ekholm is bounced deep onto the far corner. It is Anton Lundell gets this back deep. Bouchard in trouble with it again. He holds on for Hagee. Verhaeghe's there and shot in front. Lundell, he missed. But why, oh my, Evan Bouchard, you can take this game and throw it to the garbage bin. Burn the tapes. Do anything to get rid of the memories of this game because this is getting dreadful. Brad Marchand again. Oh my goodness. He almost had another one. That could have been his 7th goal at the finals. Have yourself a finals, Marchand. The Rat King has been all over this puck start to finish of the Stanley Cup Final. And could be approaching his 2nd Stanley Cup Final. Fans cheering along for this relentless Everest Podkolzin. He goes down hard on a big hit. Connor Brown has it. The fans love it as they wave their towels, anticipating their 2nd Stanley Cup in as many years. Collect up near the Oiler bench. And here is Connor Brown. Fans chanting, "We want the cup." And honestly, personally, that's a much better chant from the Panthers than the USA chant that some of these American fan bases are making because that chant should be reserved for international tournaments, not domestic tournament like the Stanley Cup Final. Just give my 2 cents. RNH wide. Nearly 8 minutes gone here in the third period. Of course, 12 minutes away from another Stanley Cup. A long shot was fired wide onto the near half boards as RNH was pursuing. Back behind is collected up by Schmidt. Kane tried to hold it, and it is Kolak with it near his own bench. That was at 8 minutes gone here in this third period. Of course, the countdown starting on here. It might be something here in terms of questions between what team is better between this Panthers team and the Heatles between LeBron, Wade, and Bosch. As one of the Oilers got tripped up, it is Bouchard with a bomb, blocked in front. And guess who it is again? Just go ahead, guess. Take your pick. Who blocked the shot? Don't hesitate. Just take a guess. It's Barkov, by the way. It's dumped in. And here it is at the near corners. McDavid. McDavid cuts behind the net, looking for a lane. The Panthers doing everything, clogging up all shooting lanes. Bouchard wide, and speaks to an excellent job of what the Panthers are doing, forcing shots wide of the goal and clogging up all sorts of shooting lanes. Back inside and offside are the Oilers, but this is defense that you have to take and learn from if you're the 31 other franchises in the NHL. This is masterful.
Yes, it is, Alec. It's absolute game film, as we said the previous from Game 5. Just look at the TV sequences. We try to explain this to you for those that are listening on the radio call. Connor McDavid's having to weave around 3 or 4 different bowling pins at a time. It's not going to work. He's the best player in the world. Nobody's going to argue that even after this, if the Florida Panthers win again. But he can't do it all by himself. And that's what the Florida Panthers are forcing all of these guys out to do. Take the puck in one-on-one against the defensive zone as it gets chipped in off the glass and help. As you mentioned, complete masterful work.
Yeah, if you mentioned about he can't do everything himself, you're giving me the comparison. Let me. I know it's a different sport, but let me mark a comparison. Say that the Panthers are the Golden State Warriors, and McDavid and the Oilers are LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers. Would that be a fair comparison to make?
I would say so, because those teams in the mix, especially when LeBron played in his first year against the San Antonio Spurs, they had no chance.
Yeah, no, because that 2007 Cavaliers team was essentially a one-man team. You can get by for the first 3 rounds, all right. You can get by the Detroit Pistons and their Bad Boys 2.0 team. But against the Spurs, you've essentially exhausted all of your energy in beating the 3 teams before you.
And that's what it certainly seems like, as you mentioned, alongside the Edmonton Oilers and the Florida Panthers. Gold standard. I know some people don't like using the word dynasty in 2 out of 3, but I'm willing to say that now. And I'm willing to say that the 2 out of 3, I know it's the same thing between the Tampa Bay Lightning, as we're starting to see the Stanley Cup come out of the case. Man, that's the most beautiful sight ever. But I think that this team is better than the Bolts.
And we're seriously thinking that. The Bolts, they rely on speed and skill. It's a skill-based game. They do have some grit and sandpaper on the bottom 6 side as well, with Pat Maroon and the entire third line of Goodrow, Gord, and Coleman. But this Panthers team is certainly the most built for this moment team, as the Panthers will control it. Now, I know there's a question, but where would things have gone differently had Brad Marchand finished the breakaway Game 5 in the 2023 series in the first round? How would things turn out? I still think that the Bruins would not have finished the job, personally, but it all could be different because record-setting teams could be primed for some moments. But that time, the Bruins were facing adversity for the first time all season. The Panthers were ready for it with Paul Maurice as their coach. All around, they were built for this moment, top to bottom. Bennett is getting hounded at that near corner, and the Oilers pick it up. Back all the way for John Klingberg. He holds the right point. Wallman loads up for a big blast. As another save by Bobrovsky. Tkachuk picks it up. How about I turn it over to you, John, for the final half of what could be the 2025 NHL season?
I appreciate it, my friend. Let's take this home as Sam Bennett will chip this one down across the right side red line. John Hunter with you alongside Alec, Nalvani, and Genge together again. It's the 4th year I've been able to cover all this stuff, the 3rd with Alec on this side, and it's been so much fun to watch this rematch. But it certainly feels like the Florida Panthers are the class of the league. And even for a team like the Edmonton Oilers, this task proves too difficult. Here's Verhaeghe. He's gone on a breakaway. Wrister save, close 5-hole Skinner.
And Stuart Skinner, he's the big reason why the Oilers have a fighting chance in this game. It's not like the Oilers have had their offensive zone chances, but the Panthers are playing much, much better defense than we're seeing. It feels like as this series gone along, the Panthers have been better with every game passing. This is game film to study from for the 31 other NHL franchises. Yes, including the Oilers.
Yes, it is. I don't really think there's any other way that you can say it. Between Paul Maurice, Bill Zito, this entire team, the players, the roster construction, Sergei Bobrovsky, the additions of Seth Jones and Brad Marchand. Let's face it, you talk about the LTIR money with Tkachuk getting hurt during 4 Nations. If they don't make this move, again, I'll say Seth Jones, but we'll punch it again as we're getting closer. If they don't make this move to get Brad Marchand, they probably don't lift the cup today.
Probably not, because we know Mackie Samoskevich is a promising talent in the NHL, but you want to get proven veterans that have been here and done that before. Marchand's exactly that. Seth Jones has seen limited playoff action, but we remember, he was one of the players that Bobrovsky remembers from the 2019 Columbus Blue Jackets team that upset the Lightning in that historic sweep. So he remembers playoff hockey all too well, and he knows what it takes. He almost played a full hour of game time in that 5 overtime marathon against the Lightning in 2020. He knows what it takes too.
And I'll mention this alongside Brad Marchand. Before they went to the finals in the Cats, he came out and said this was the only team I was going to be willing to waive my no-trade clause to. And they haven't built this overnight. I mean, gentlemen, we talked about it from the Stanley Cup Finals in 1996 when they got swept by the Colorado Avalanche. And even bringing hockey to Florida in general, it was considered a non-factor and essentially a laughing stock. And now, over the last 3-4 years, you build this across Bill Zito, who no doubt in my mind should win GM of the year. No disrespect to Jim Nill, but I think you got to do it again because his moves were definitely cap savers and made a lot of sense. And they're continuing to get the job done again.
Yes, they have, which, as we're getting back to the third period, it really is a question that I've been wanting to ask. Which Miami-based team is better between this Panthers team and the Heat teams that have LeBron, Wade, and Bosh?
It's really interesting when you think about that because I think all told depth, I would say even the Panthers. I know the Stanley Cup is a lot harder to win than the Larry O'Brien, but you can definitely make that because there's a lot of superstars and Hall of Famers between both.
Yes, it has. As Tkachuk, we're seeing him 1350 of ice time. His brother is here. Brady Tkachuk and Keith Tkachuk made the trip. Keith raised them well and being superstars in the NHL. That is a proud man.
And I said this to you from the beginning of this last year when the Florida Panthers were up 3-0 and they had opportunities for the first Stanley Cup in franchise history to try to get it done at home. They couldn't do it. They faced the nerves. They lost 8-1. They got blown out. They had people come, and then they decided, no, we're going to make this a business trip. We're not going to get the extra tickets. They'll find a way to settle their nerves and get the job done at home this time with a second effort. It's not going to take Game 7. They'll figure it out. But now they're not going to get home ice advantage, try to get it done in Game 6, and it looks like that's what they're going to do. 8:55 left to go in the third. Can't mistake that this team being there 3 years in a row, but if not for that miracle run, as you mentioned, Brad Marchand of the Bruins at the time, man, the Cats got so beat up in that first-round series against the Bruins, they really never had a chance against Vegas. But they got there. A little bit of a miracle run. What do they do after? Win the Stanley Cup against the Edmonton Oilers for Canada's only hope. And now they are putting the vice grip down. I know it wasn't a 3-0 and this series was closer at times, but this first period domination looks so good. Their defensive system's good. Bobrovsky, the trades for Jones and Marchand, everything has come together. And really, Alec, this was a regular season that was kind of ho-hum, but they've stood the test of the time and they're playing their best hockey when it matters most.
Yes, they have. They know how to elevate their games. All 18 skaters and the goaltenders out there on the record. Oh my goodness. Well, and you're about to get this, but Sam Bennett almost got his 16th goal at the postseason. But yeah, we got this, but a turnover at the defensive zone. The Panthers are doing a good job forcing turnovers from anywhere. Defensive zone, offensive zone. They're the most well-structured team in the NHL, no matter how you take away from them.
Jake Wallman's pass, again, I mentioned Evan Bouchard a few times because we have to. Tkachuk takes a big hit. Thankfully, he pops back up. But Jake Wallman's pass was just as bad as Evan Bouchard's that caused a couple goals against. Again, nothing to tell you about in the third, just the one goal in the second. I might as well give you the reset as the play-by-play is going on. As in the start from the first, it was Reinhart and Tkachuk from Lusterinen and Lindell, and then Barkov's chance after a turnover bounces off Reinhardt's skate. He got his second from Verhaeghe, and that's still where we are. 7 minutes left. As this puck goes down the ice, it'll be blown dead. Cats on the precipice have taken 2 of the last 3.
Oh, yeah, that's basically a reverse Tampa Bay Lightning, because the Lightning, they won the first 2, lost the last one. The Panthers, they lost the first one, they won the last 2. So that's why I'm saying a reverse Tampa Bay Lightning. And Stuart Skinner is getting pulled. The Oilers are going for all the marbles here. They know their season's on the line with 7 minutes.
The old 7-minute net pull, I happen to think that's way too soon, although we've seen the Winnipeg Jets do it a couple of years ago. It must have been 9-minute mark. but this is what it is. Bobrovsky, 26 of 26. He will be tested the rest of the way. But again, you can talk about Conn Smythe, and his name should definitely be mentioned as well. It's not been lost on all of us. He's been terrific. Is McDavid. Rims it around the end boards, try to escape the pressure of the Cats for Hagee off the touch for Barkov. Into the empty net, it's 4-0. Reinhart with the hat trick.
Let it rain. The Florida Panthers, they are destined for this moment. The Stanley Cup is coming back to Miami and Fort Lauderdale. It's going to be another celebration here. I saw something that they are already setting up the Stanley Cup parade here, and you're wondering how is it going to be? He's now the fourth player in history to get a hat trick in a Stanley Cup Final clinching game. He was on the other side of it 2 years ago when Mark Stone did it for the Vegas Golden Knights, and now he's on the precipice of history. Now we wonder, one, who's going to win in the Conn Smythe Trophy, and two, who's going to get the first handoff from Alexander Barkov?
Yeah, there's a lot to think about. Happy thoughts for the Florida Panthers, and now with 6:34 left in the third, it feels like a formality. This almost feels like that series a couple of years ago when Vegas was able to take that victory lap. It's not often you get a 4-0 crushing right now in a Stanley Cup Finals, but that's where we are. The Panthers are just too good.
Yeah, they are. Don't make no mistake. The Oilers are a good team, and I'll give them credit for making it all the way here because we both counted them out in the first round. We both thought that this was the Kings' year to win in a series against the Oilers. They were battle-tested and came back in the face of adversity. They made it all the way here where we didn't expect them to. The Vegas series, I thought Vegas had the edge, but the body language of the Golden Knights showed that they were turnover happy here. Turnover happy in the playoffs, even in the Wild series. The Oilers, they took advantage of all of that. Dallas, Edmonton put them on an unmarked grave in the Western Conference Finals. But here, we know the Oilers are a great team. The Panthers are an elite team. And one that is we talk about the Oilers being an elite team. The Panthers are more than just an elite team. They're a historically good team.
Yeah, they're going into legendary status, especially if they get one more of these. And it's not unfair to say that the Panthers, again, are going to be an automatic playoff team next year. Who knows if they can make the trek for a fourth straight year. But 2 out of 3 puts you in that type of company. And I'll buy the sweaters are great, too. 3 goals on 3 shots and about 20 minutes of ice time for Sam Reinhart. I know Paul Maurice likes a lot of his players, but I got to believe that Sam Reinhart is at the top of his list as a favorite. A Game 7 winner last year, and now an icer here that makes it 4-0.
3 shots, 3 goals. That's been amazing. 8 players with 8 players with cup-clinching goals for the Stanley Cup Finals. They have back-to-back Sam Reinhart. The last time this happened, Mike Bossy for the Islanders.
Mike Bossy was unbelievable. I know a little bit before my time, just a little bit in the mix. If it wasn't for his injuries, he's already in legendary status. The Stanley Cup getting polished up. It's going to need some sunscreen. Admittedly, it's going to stay in sunrise as we go to break.
SPF 45, maybe, Lord Stanley?
Absolutely. It's going to enjoy the nice warm sunshine.
Yeah, it is. And I know that the Stanley Cup has seen its fair share of sunshine and rainbows down to Sunshine State. No pun intended, but nonetheless, I feel the Stanley Cup has used a lot of sunscreen as of recently. It's not possible that a Stanley Cup can get a suntan.
I wouldn't think so, but when you're spending all that time in South Florida, it might be possible.
I will say this, fellas. Yes. Stanley Cup, my opinion, okay, I'm a little biased because of how successful my team has done, but second to the Lombardi as the best trophy in all the sports, and also the best shot glass to drink out of ever.
Yeah, you could be like a lot of those players who have eaten spaghetti out of the cup and done you-know-what with it. The Florida Panthers are going to get to do it again, it seems like.
Yeah, they are. And not to mention about the 2004 run as we speak of the sunscreen usage. I mean, 2004 with the Tampa Bay Lightning. And now it's going to enjoy a lot more at the beaches. Popular summer destination, the beaches, of course.
I'll mention this because you talked about the Oilers and me being wrong on the side of it because I said the same thing. Oh, I've been picking the Kings over the last 4 years, and yet they can't get out of their way in comparison to the Oilers. Kachuk said it as much about his toughest test coming back from injury from the Four Nation to play the Bolts. I didn't think the Panthers were going to beat Tampa Bay.
Neither did I. I thought Tampa was going to have their number this time around, but man, were we all proven wrong. That Oliver Bjorkstrand injury haunted the Bolts big time.
So we get another empty net pool. Stuart Skinner, Calvin Pickard. You could put in Olivia Rodriguez. It won't even matter at this point. It didn't matter who was in their goal because they were not getting any saves. When you have Bobrovsky on the other end in this team, and I know there was some initial analysts talking about that. Goaltending's got to be better, but there's a lot that's got to be better. That entire bottom six, you can't just have two players carry the pail. But the most unfortunate thing, gentlemen, for the Oilers is we've been talking about that from season to season, and yet not much has changed to address some of that. They're still a two-man team. Even though as much as it is the Panthers, they're so difficult to beat. As this will be shoveled toward the right side of the glass, Carter Verhaeghe off the pinch. And this can be lifted back down. Rolling puck right into the yawning cage. Let's do it again, Sam!
Oh, 4 for him. He's enjoying himself a night. Having the night of his life here. 4 goals in the clincher. Mark Stone, I know he got a hat trick in the clincher, but man, is this a legendary game for the Panthers. They're now just the second team in Stanley Cup Final history with 3 players each having 5 goals in a final series. Do you know the other one? The 1955 Detroit Red Wings.
I'm joking when I say this because it's one game, but is it possible now that Conn Smythe can also be split for Sam Reinhart? I mean, he's got 4.
I mean, we can also organize this up. Say, I know you're paying Kasperi Kapanen. I know you wanted this so badly. And my heart aches for him, not just because he's a former Pittsburgh Penguin, but of how badly the Oilers wanted to get after this trophy. The pain of last year stings so much, but this pain is going to hurt even more.
Yeah, I can't imagine knowing that they felt a lot closer last year, Alec. I know it was 3-0 for the Cats. They had to force Game 7. But doesn't it feel like the Oilers were closer last year and then they just completely got taken away from them? As we get a backhand finish, there's going to be no celebration. It's Pod Colson that will go ahead and cut away from the deficit. It's still 4 with 4:42 in the third.
Yeah, no celebration because the Panthers have put a lot of belt to you-know-what to the Oilers in this game. A defensive masterclass and game tape for what other teams should study if they were to have a shot at the Stanley Cup. They say heavy is the crown, and of course, a long series is what we all asked for. It's a shame that it ended in 6 games because I wondered what would happen if this went to 7.
Yeah, you and I admittedly a few games ago, especially from Game 2, Game 3, thinking that home ice was going to be the decider of everything. The Oilers are not going to get to Rogers Place unless they get a miracle of 435. That Pod Colson goal doesn't do much because Reinhart already got another empty netter. He's got 4. And the way that this is, Chris Knobloch could pull the netminder again, and they could put Reinhart back out there for his 5th. That's honestly possible. As Bennett now will go ahead and chase, but it's 5-1. The shot word is 28-23 for Edmonton, but they're on the wrong side of the scoreboard. Once again, no shame to lose to the Florida Panthers. But for those that thought that they wouldn't be back here, again, one of me, considering for the Tampa Bay Lightning, I can put foot, insert mouth. But the way that it is, the Cats look like they're going to do it again. And I just love watching this team play and commentating on their games because they do everything the right way between their systems, their coach, offense, defense, and goaltending. Bill Zito with the adjustments, bringing players in. They play just wonderful hockey, and it's a treat to be able to cover them each and every year. as Barkov. Now we'll leave this back for Verhaeghe. Flip the Forsling, but we'll chip it out of his own end. 3:25, gentlemen, left until the NHL season will expire. Again, we will stay on the air a little bit longer for the celebrations. Lindell, his chance goes wide and off the backboards, and he'll recollect toward the left side of the red line. Lindell will spin it back around. Here's an opportunity for Lustarini. Very fitting that this third line is going to encapsulate some time when this is said and done. Lustow trying to get around a body check. Can't get around Kulak. As Kulak now will punch this one ahead. Send it back down slowly. Crowd's been able to chant, "We want the cup," and now we already know that that's going to happen at this point. 2:45 left to go in this third. Kind of feels like a distant memory in between Tampa and the Colorado Avalanche with the games being so close, because in between Florida and Vegas, and now Florida over the last couple of years, it's been domination. There's not been much intrigue when it comes to the final end of this games, but that's how good Florida is. And for as good as Edmonton is, make no mistake about it, as Alec profiled, they're even a step behind, maybe even two, in terms of how good the Cats can be. Mikko Mikkola flip this one down among the end glass, and Stuart Skinner close it down. Maybe the last time he'll touch the puck. 2:13 left to go in the third as we get some camera shots away from the play, and then immediately goes in on Kane and Tkachuk. We're going to see what's going to happen here. Kane's going to go to the box.
A 10-minute misconduct. These two have had a long history of one another. And you know, I wonder if Tkachuk is going to stay at the tunnel so as to watch the rest of the game. If Kane is having... Yeah, Kane just whacked Tkachuk with his stick.
What's he doing?
Yeah, I wonder, what is he doing? The game's already over. There was no need for this.
And Evander Kane, over the last couple of games when it started, I was saying he was having such a great impact. And then to take this over the last time, I understand that you're frustrated and the Florida Panthers are delivering the belt as you talked about. But Evander Kane is not doing himself any favors.
Oh, he is not at all.
There'll be a D-zone draw. Now for Darnell Nurse, you got to wonder if that 50% buyout's going to happen at this point. I would think, because the Oilers need to get some cap space. They can't have these vet mins all across the board, and you got to provide more support for Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, because they can only do so much. 1:50 left to go in the third. It's going to be 2 out of 3 here for the Florida Panthers, and who knows if they can make it more. They still got one more year of Bobrovsky, and the rest of this team's core is going to be here. Brad Marchand's going to take his sweetheart deal, no doubt. And Tom Lindell, as this one's fought off by Skinner with the glove hand, down to 90 seconds at Amerant Bank Arena before the crowd gets erupted into a frenzy. Everybody admittedly now has their phones out as this one goes to the left side blue line. One last rush. This will be sent back down for Jake Woolman. They spent a first-round pick on him, but his last couple games for Jake haven't been anything good either, alongside for Evan Bouchard. 1:05 left to go in the third. As this goes back down to Jake Woolman, the towels continue to wave, and the crowd is getting very loud here. As this is cleared and across center ice. Bounces off Bobrovsky, and Aaron Ekblad will funnel it down. You wonder if it's going to be his last year. Maybe they can't afford to bring back Sam Bennett and Ekblad, but still not a lot for the Cats to do in the offseason, so you got to feel good about that. As this one gets sent back down to Ekblad. Ekblad got a few Oilers in his face. We'll roll this one down slowly, and this will negate the icing. 30 seconds, gentlemen, for the Florida Panthers to do it again. We will go left to right now for Evan Bouchard. It'll be a formality here through the windmill as this one gets shoveled in the corner. Down to 15. Gustav Forsling. Thought I might saw some rubber rats. They might try to throw that out there early. Now Forsling escapes behind his net, and the celebrations are going to commence. And the tickles off the dogs, and the rubber rats raid. The Cats do it again. 2 out of 3 years. 2025 Stanley Cup champions.
This is a historically good team, as we mentioned time and time again. We imagine this team coming back here next year. We don't know who they're going to face on the road, but they're gunning for something bigger after this year. Champions of all time with the back-to-back Stanley Cups. They began the year raising the banner for last year's Cup. They ended the year raising the Cup again. Now all that's left here is the Conn Smythe Trophy and the Stanley Cup. All the celebrations. And Johnny Hockey, this cup's for you.
I have to imagine that's going to weigh heavy on Tkachuk's mind, as well as he's able to celebrate with his teammates. For Matthew Tkachuk, over the last couple of games, he said he's feeling more healthy than he has been, still playing through a big-time injury. As they get those camera shots for Connor McDavid, it's got to be wondering, what more do I have to do to be able to get around this team again? As Paul Maurice gets a chance to be able to celebrate as well, Sam Reinhart with an absolutely insane game as he scored 4 times, and the Panthers win this series 4-2. They win the rematch. Again, those rematches of the team winning the other time, that's taken away. The Cats said, we want it again. They've earned it again in dominating fashion.
They wanted the rematch. They got the rematch. The first 4 games were pure excitement to all angles. Then it was all Panthers from here on out. Can take whatever record about Chris Knobloch in the final 4 games of a series, and then we can throw that out the window, because Paul Maurice showed exactly how hockey has to be played on the defensive end. Game tape to study. As we mentioned again, I'm a broken record at this point, but it is game tape for all 31 other franchises watching this game, and the Oilers who are playing in this game. And we saw that, and we know that this is the matchup that we wanted, the matchup that we deserved, and it all came down to the same conclusion. What a game for the Panthers. What a game for Sam Reinhart. What a finals for Sam Bennett and Brad Marchand. And you mentioned, split the Conn Smythe Trophy up and give it to Marchand, Bennett, Reinhart, and Bobrovsky. What's up, Ian?
I will be right back. I need to deliver some congratulations.
All right, we'll see you in a little bit. You can stay in on the call. We're going to stay around here, Alec, admittedly. I'm glad that you broke that all down because, Alec, I want to be honest with you. I've loved working the last 3 years here with you. And alongside of this is my 4th that I've been able to call. And you take about Colorado, Vegas, and now Florida twice. And this is the most dominant team that I've seen since covering these games. This is the best hockey team that I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, in a long time. And that speaks to a while. We speak to the years that which the Blackhawks won those Stanley Cups. You know, the Florida, if we were to pit those Blackhawks teams and the Florida Panthers up against one another, it's going to go down to the wire in 7 games. And we think that Florida might come out on top. And Corey Perry, it stings knowing that he's lost 5 of the last 6 finals. This one's got to be the most painful of those.
I'm going to be honest with Corey Perry. Just join the Cats next year. You'll win one.
Oh, that's a lesser extent of a Kevin Durant than, yeah.
No, because Corey Perry's actually earned it, and he's been a Cup champion before. He's not chasing. He was one of the main reasons why the Oilers were even in that position.
Yeah, he was. And he was elevated to the top line.
Sergei Bobrovsky will now get some hugs and alongside with everyone else. Again, you get to wear the hats. Again, you get to wear the jersey. And I will say this, alongside for as good of a team as the Cats are, as Bill Zito. Now, again, some congratulations across the board alongside Barkov. Barkov may very well be one of the very best captains that we have in the NHL. The way that he conducts himself, offense, defense, his humility, everything else he brings it across the ice. He seems to be like one of the perfect guys you would want to have in the locker room.
Yeah.
Let's also not forget, fellas, one thing about Bobrovsky. When that contract was inked and the first year was up, we all remember. Everyone was calling it an albatross. It was a terrible idea to sign him to that contract. We did not forget. We did not forget what those claims were. We did not forget the buyer's remorse shown by Panthers fans and others. Well, where are you now?
Can't say anything now. Again, you said it earlier before, Ian, throughout this series, that $10 million that almost seems like a discount. I know it's a lot, but considering the way that he's played, we could go through this entire series, and we've not mentioned Bobrovsky because of the 6, 7, 8 other pieces out in front of him, especially their defense, offense, special teams, and all of that have dominated. But Bobrovsky probably had one of his best Stanley Cup Final series, period, of his career.
That has been the case here. 6 goals for Marchand in the Stanley Cup Final. In the latter games for Bobrovsky, the last 2 especially, those were some of the best that he's had over the time. Ooh. Of course, Hockey Hall of Famer Brad Marchand, who has won his 2nd cup. Now we wonder, what now for of the Conn Smythe Trophy? I imagine, could you name it co-winners of the Conn Smythe Trophy, like what the MLB did and the World Series MVP between Randy Johnson and Curt Schilling? Because we need to have co-winners of the Conn Smythe Trophy.
In between Bennett and Marchand?
Yeah, between Bennett and Marchand, yes.
I would think if we were ever going to do that, Alec, and if there was a case to be made, it would be those boys. I happen to think with the latest eyes, considering what Marchand has done over the last couple, my guess, it's going to go to him.
Yep, it will.
So we're going to stick with you. They're going to go to commercial break before we get to the Stanley Cup presentation. When we get all the handshakes and some of that, then Alec and Ian and I will leave you here. But again, Alec, thank you for everything throughout this entire season. I can't wait to do it again. And when we get to it next year, we'll also get to think about the Olympics at some point. I know you and I will be front and center when it comes to all that, regardless whether or not I'll be moving in with the missus and all, which I will be, but I'll still be able to get everything squared away to be able to do streams with you. So privileged to be able to do this again. It's been a lot of fun. This rematch was good, but admittedly, Panthers, boy oh boy, claws out over the last couple games, because we talked about game film and the way that it's been, and that's what I said to you. I think that this is the best team I've seen in recent memory. And between Colorado, Vegas, and the 2 Florida teams, this team could beat all of those teams.
Yeah. Though, well, between this, the Red Wings, the Avalanche, the Devils, we're not sure how many teams the Panthers could beat between the all-time great teams. We see them beating the Blackhawks. The Penguins, I feel it's going to be tighter given the likes of Crosby, Malkin, but this Panthers team can be built for taking down those Penguins teams. The Lightning, I'll give the issue to Panthers. The Avalanche, tight series. Red Wings, tight series. Devils, I feel Brodeur could give if the Panthers some fits. I feel the only team with those all-time teams in which I don't see the Panthers beating is the Devils.
Yeah, and I'll throw one out there, although it's not fair to do so. Admittedly, it is my team, but it's not salary cap era. The 2002 Red Wings are probably the most unfair team to ever put on the ice.
Oh yeah, isn't that when they just said, you know what, let's. Isn't that the year where they said, hey Brett,
yeah,
want to come win the cup?
Hey Luke, you want to come over? Yeah, and then we'll put him on the third line with someone named Pavel Datsyuk. My goodness.
Yeah. And he and Zetterberg were high-flying prospects coming up in the early stages of the Empire. In the early goings, it was Yzerman and the Russian Five with Lidstrom. And then you get Zetterberg to come up. In that 2008 run, it was an aging Red Wings team. But still, it still was an all-time team for the Red Wings. The Panthers may be up there in that grasp.
Yeah, they really are. Go ahead, Ian.
I want to put one more team in there. It's not an all-time great team, but it is a Stanley Cup team. The Panthers are beating them, but I still say the 2019 Blues are at least taking this to 6 because Jordan Binnington, he would steal a game or two. He would. And I'll be honest, it may even be 7 because unlike the Oilers, the Blues had depth scoring. Very reliable depth scoring.
And I love their moxie and everything else and their run from being dead last all the way from January to February to go ahead and win the Stanley Cup is something that you don't ever wonder that's going to ever happen again. Is Sam Bennett is going to win Conn Smythe. That is no surprise considering his entire run throughout the playoffs. And he's going to get a big, big payday and another Stanley Cup to add to it.
What you're hearing is the sound of GMs quickly scrambling into arms race to go after his services. Because you'd imagine, Conn Smythe Trophy winner, 15 goals in the playoffs, reputable playoff performer. Who doesn't want that on their team? Florida's going to do everything to keep him. And if I'm the Panthers, yes, that is the logical route. I know Tree made the joke of $12 million per season, but in what world would he be paid more than Mitch Marner in the offseason? I feel now you start at the very least 8.8 or 9 million, but 9.5 million could be something.
Boys, it's happening again. Admittedly, how many times we do it? I'm getting goosebumps. Lord Stanley making its way on the ice.
Absolutely.
And you know,
this is a great sight.
And you know, if I'm Bennett, please have part of that Conn Smythe Trophy go to Marchand too, because he equally deserves this. 6 goals in the final is no joke.
There are so many players, as we talked about Alec throughout this entire run. You can talk about it between Zito and Maurice, all the way down the board. The fourth line that played so well, the third line that's dominated. You have in the mix of Verhaeghe and Reiner. Look, nobody really wanted Carter Verhaeghe all not that much until he lands back into Florida and mix on the Lightning. There it is on the pedestal. Gary Bettman going to get set to deliver the Stanley Cup to the Florida Panthers soon, and we'll see who gets the first handoff.
Yep, that's all that is. But, you know, my pick here, Seth Jones.
It would be good to see Seth Jones again, one of those in the LTIR money that probably wouldn't have had a chance to be here. Maybe Marchand, you could still make the argument, but there was a lot of good moves that the Cats had made, and they knew that they had a good roster. And Alec, also, I think that Bill Zito didn't have to over-tinker. He was smart about it.
He is one of the best GMs in the league. At this point, so you rank among the best GMs in the league, I feel Zito has to be at the very top of the list. Among the likes of, we speak of the likes of Jim Nill, Julien Brisebois. You could probably say Steve Yzerman, but as long as you consider his Lightning tenure, because we don't know what his tenure with Detroit is like, because it's been a seesaw of all sorts. But we put Zito at the very top of the GM list, on a list that includes Jim Nill and all the top GMs in the league.
Yeah, Bill Zito is number one far and away. And I understand his team has had the luxury to go to the Stanley Cup Finals 3 times and won 2. But you bring in that trade, who's got the you-know-what to go ahead and bring in Matthew Tkachuk, knowing that you had Jonathan Huberdeau that had, over 100 assists, Alec? And you make that move and say, it's not good enough, let's get it done. Alex Barkov with the shot in the fireworks alongside Gary Bettman as he gets set to hand it off.
And they surround him. I may be ahead of you. They surround him. And how fitting that they all lift the Stanley Cup at the same time, because they know this was a total team. That one frame of them all coming together to hoist the Stanley Cup in unison shows the total team mentality all throughout.
That's what I said earlier about Alex Barkov. Again, first European-born player to captain 2 Stanley Cup winning teams. Again, not the captaincy for Nick Lidstrom, because that was Steve Yzerman there the first time. So Barkov in elite company, as Nate Schmidt's going to get the Stanley Cup first. That's great to see, because he was phenomenal during this run.
He came to Florida wanting to play for Paul Maurice on a discounted deal. His career was at a crossroads at Winnipeg after several bad seasons, but now he's found his home here at Miami.
We can go ahead and chalk 2 more former Golden Knights misfits getting a cup.
Yeah.
Yeah, Schmidt and Tomas Nosek.
Yep.
Man, oh man, I just can't get over how good this team is all the way across the board, and that is what you love to see in terms of that. And you talk about it now, Seth Jones going to get a chance to get his parade around the ice.
Miscastings in the Chicago and an ill-fated number one defense pairing role acquired by Florida to settle onto the second pairing. And now he could be the top pairing defenseman, the lead defenseman for the Panthers next year, depending on what happens with Aaron Ekblad. As we see who is next, and that's going to be another original misfit, Tomas Nosek.
Tomas Nosek was a Red Wing a long time ago on the fourth line side, so I'm glad to see this man be able to lift the Stanley Cup as well. I'll be honest with you, gentlemen. In terms of where I rank in between the Calgary Flames and the Oilers and doing all that, I understand that rivalry, but there really isn't a player on the Florida Panthers that I don't like. Even with Marchand and some of his stuff that he does when he knows he plays on the line and maybe goes over, still when you bring in all that skill, that attitude, and sandpaper into a team like this, they just play the game the right way. Yes, they're going to rub you the wrong way. Yes, they're going to take some hits and kind of get the best of you. But that's what you have to do in order to lift a trophy like this.
And now his countryman, Vitek Vanacek, takes a chance at lifting the cup. He was a standout goaltender for the Washington Capitals in his previous years, but ill-fated years and stints with New Jersey and San Jose have plagued him all throughout. And now he's in Florida. He's thrived as being the backup goaltender. I feel he's going to get a pay cut to stay as the backup to Sergei Bobrovsky. And now, what a time for him to hoist the cup. And A.J. Greer, another former Calgary Flame.
A.J. Greer is another one of those guys that got a little bit of an extension. And alongside Bill Zito, again, it's nothing major as far as their cap hit. But what he's able to bring on that fourth line side, and not afraid to throw the fists either. I think A.J. Greer is exactly the type of guy that they wanted, and they identified him early.
Yeah, as their replacement after losing Ryan Lomberg to Calgary, nonetheless.
Absolutely. Fits that same role beautifully. And alongside, you mentioning Mackie Samoskevich, and alongside Jonah Gadjevich, Samoskevich, because Gadjevich was able to play that role a bit better. It doesn't mean Mackey's not going to play a lot more next year. He's already going to be able to be out there too. And Jesper Boquist, how about this young man? Able to go ahead and move between the first, third, and fourth line, and between some of those injuries there. There's another one of those guys that, I know it's the same refrain, played very well.
He played nicely last year with the Boston Bruins. And that sample size in which he provided with the Bruins led to him getting a deal with the Panthers, and he showed exactly that same style of play that he showed with Boston onto Florida. Let's see who is next, and that goes to, speak of the man who played college hockey with the U of M, Mackie Samoskevich.
It's always nice to see a Wolverine lift the Stanley Cup, and yes, it is my bias to Mackie Samoskevich. I love to watch him in Amazing Blue. There's been a lot of excellent teams over there, but nothing compares from the college side of the NHL to lifting the Stanley Cup. That's got to feel good for him.
Oh, yeah. In his rookie season, nonetheless, he played a majority of the regular season. And while he was a healthy scratch in the playoffs, he did deliver some great goal-scoring production on the third line. If Bennett does go, we'd imagine that Samoskevich will get extended looks in future postseasons. Uvis Balinskis, one of the preliminary roster names from Team Latvia.
Yes. He was pretty good on this. I know he was a seventh line defenseman or a seventh pairing, but Balinskis, he was able to punch in, score some goals here early throughout this Stanley Cup playoffs as well. He was pretty good. Another one of those ones that have size. And I will say this for Samoskevich just very quickly. I know he's a young man. He's got a long way to go in his hockey career, but please don't take it for granted because you never know how many times you're going to be able to win one.
You don't know because you don't know if this is your first, and we don't know if this is your last opportunity. Brad Marchand knew this when he was a rookie with Boston, and he gets it hoisted again. Right now, it is Jacob Megna, towering seventh defenseman. He did get some action with San Jose and Seattle, but man, in a depth role, he's been solid.
Yeah, you got to think that there's a lot of other defensemen, as we talk about those depth roles, Alec, that on a lot of other teams would already be able to step in and do a ton of damage. And if I got that correctly, it's the backup goaltender, Evan Cormier. I'm just waiting to see Jonah Gadjevich with his smile.
We're just waiting because this is the moment they're waiting for. The Panthers, they're wanting to go with the reverse approach. The Black Aces getting it first before the main guys go and get it, because the main guys, they know they have won the Cup before. So we're seeing another... Oh, here's this time now. We're starting to go with the main guys. This is the guy that he got the first handoff last year. He's getting the handoff from the third string Cormier. Sergei Bobrovsky, Mr. Patrick Roy reincarnate.
I know, selfishly across the board, we all have our own teams. But, gentlemen, can we all agree that Sergei Bobrovsky is probably one of our favorite goaltenders in the NHL?
He is. He's the favorite goaltenders to watch here in the NHL. And guess who? He's embraced this city. He's embraced the nickname. He's embraced playing for this team. The Rat King himself.
Boys, it's getting very loud now that Brad Marchand was able to lift the Stanley Cup. These fans know how much impact he's made, and so have the players. That's fitting.
It is very fitting. He's now a fan favorite in Florida, and I know he wants to spend the rest of his career here in the Miami Beaches, taking his time with this one. It's been 14 years since he last got to lift it. And they're throwing the rats all over him, even when he's hoisting it. The Rat King tradition has carried over to Cup hoisting festivities. I love it, John.
Yeah, he's having to use the Stanley Cup to block the rubber rats.
And now it's Dmitry Kulikov's turn with the Cup. This is beautiful for Kulikov. He's one of the three last players for the 2016 team that made the playoffs in that series between the Panthers and the Islanders. The other being Barkov and Ekblad. But Kulikov in his second go-around with this club. He originally was a high draft pick. Didn't pan out his first go-around, but he settled in nicely on a depth role. He'll be here for 3 more years, possibly to ride out the rest of his career as a Panther. And who says that he's not a Panther lifer at this point?
No, he really has. You're absolutely right. As Sergei Bobrovsky is getting the interview from Jackie Redmond. We'll stay with you for a little bit longer because we're going to get the team picture and everything else. But again, I just want to say my thank yous and alongside both of you gentlemen. It's been a lot of fun. And I'm going to go ahead and give a call to Cooper Hopkins when it's all said and done, because he just sent me a text message. Let me see if I can relay that across to all of you as my phone is going off a little bit. So Gretzky gives Theo Fleury a shout-out during the Stanley Cup celebration. My first favorite player, wow. Sam Bennett, Conn Smythe, and adios Oilers back-to-back for the Cats. That's from Cooper.
Oh, I know the Flames fandom may be speaking from him, but you know, fandom does speak to it. While Ekblad takes his time with his Cup, we don't know what the future is going to hold for him. But if this is his last game as a Panther, he went out on top.
Absolutely. Alec, as we said, it's not going to be easy to replace somebody like him. But Aaron Ekblad in his career is well within his right to be able to ask the money he's deserved to be able to get, because he's not done yet with the terms of his career. He's got a lot left to give.
Yeah, he has. And so does Sam Reinhart. Very fitting that we're seeing pick number 1 handed off to pick number 2 in the 2014 draft. So, paging pick number 4, the Cup, Sam Bennett?
I'm going to say right now that Paul Maurice in his office has a picture signed with him and Sam Reinhart in his room, because he scores critical goals. A game winner last year in Game 7, 4 goals in this Game 6. He loves the bright lights.
And guess what? It is Bennett.
Sam Bennett, Conn Smythe, second-time Stanley Cup champion. Get a shot of that right now, as some of the other young kids have a Stanley Cup of their own up in the air. That the dollar signs, you're going to see that over his head right now. Whatever they give, hey, I'll say this honestly, could be an overpay if you want to go to $12 million or plus, but it's not an overpay by the time you get to the Stanley Cup playoffs, because he's built for it.
Yeah, of course, initial contract pay rates can be a little questionable at first, but when the playoffs come, that's when he plays up to this contract. And, hey, Johnny Hockey, are you watching this?
Don't try to bring a tear to my eye, Alec, because I'm already thinking about it. Here's Matthew Tkachuk.
Oh,
as he's got this up and his ear from Sam Bennett, the former Flames teammates there together celebrating. They're thinking about that man in this moment. And they're bringing it now alongside for Keith Tkachuk getting those shots.
yep.
Matthew admittedly says, Alec, again, it was less than 50% whether or not he was going to be able to participate. He's played his best games for last at the end. He has been wonderful, and we can't wait to see much, much more of him in a Panthers uniform. He's just getting started.
I don't want to bring it up, but don't tell me I'm not the only one who feels bad for Jonathan Huberdeau at this point. Oh, yeah, and Tkachuk is hoisting the cup right in front of his brother Brady.
I'm thinking the same thing, Alec, because Jonathan Huberdeau was here for a long time waiting for this moment to happen, and then immediately it happens. He gets traded, which he's been good for the Flames, but that's got to hurt.
It does. You got to think back to if you want a hockey equivalent of this particular trade. I immediately think to Kawhi Leonard for DeMar DeRozan. Now,
Sure.
Granted, Kawhi was a 1-year rental, but it has that same effect.
Yeah, you have to bring the pieces over to help cement you as a Stanley Cup champion and build your culture. I know it's Paul Maurice. I know it's the rest of the players and all that too. But really, Matthew Tkachuk in between Huberdeau and Mackenzie Weegar, who are fantastic players, he was the glue that helped put all this other stuff together.
He was one of the final pieces to the puzzle for the Florida Panthers. And plain simple, that even though it may have cost a little too much at first glance, that's the price you have to pay to bring in a talent like him. The Panthers gave up Huberdeau, Weegar, and a first, along with a prospect called Schwint, because they know that Tkachuk was the better player in the trade.
And Carter Verhaeghe just knows what it's like to play hockey in South Florida between the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Florida Panthers. He scores some big goals. He is hockey in the state of Florida.
He is. And good for him that he's going to get a pay raise this coming offseason. He's going to go from a bargain deal to $7 million per year. Well earned for him.
Yeah, and he's worth every penny, Alec. I'm going to get no argument.
Yeah. Before him was Gustav Forsling in getting the Stanley Cup raising. We'll see who gets it from Verhaeghe. And I think it's going to be my guy, Evan Rodriguez.
Let's go, Alec. That's got to be so exciting for you.
Yeah, the former Penguin, labeled as a Swiss Army knife. Interestingly, he almost was a Toronto Maple Leaf, but he wasn't tendered by the Leafs when he was traded there, and the Penguins brought him back on a 1-year deal. Then he landed with Colorado as more than just insurance to recoup for some of the lost depth. He was all right with the Avs, but his time with Pittsburgh really led him to this point. Mike Sullivan coached him to perfection.
Yeah, and you're right about the Swiss Army knife. Whether it's top six, bottom six, you need me to score, you need me to back check, kill penalties, do whatever else you need to do. Evan Rodriguez is your guy. And then the same thing now for you in Nico Mikkola.
That's your guy, Ian.
Oh, yeah. Former Blue Nico Mikkola, now a three-time Stanley Cup champion.
There's not much we can say, Alec, as far as Nico Mikkola is able to take a very small cap hit, dominate, score a ton of goals, close everything down on the blue line. He's playing probably the best hockey of his career.
You know, the Panthers, of course, with their own mini Finnish mafia between Barkov, Mikkola, and now Eetu Luostarinen, we hope to see them and Anton Lundell in the Olympics next year.
Absolutely. And between Luostarinen and Lundell, I know they put Marchand on there now. But again, Luostarinen, 26 years of age, Anton Lundell, 23. They feel like they're older statesmen because they play so well, but they're actually not. They're a big reason of why this young Panthers score predominantly is so successful.
Yeah, is Matthew Tkachuk is getting debut from Darren Pangin. Yes, as you mentioned, Lundell, he gets the handoff from Luostarinen. It's a whole Finnish. It's a whole celebration for Finland up and throughout. We wonder if the day with the cup is going to come back to back between Barkov, Luostarinen, Lundell, or in Mikkola in any sort of order.
Yeah, when they're all incredible players, not even in their own right, when they all get a chance to play for Finland in the Olympics, look out, because as Alec and I said, they're a team that can play dark horse to anyone. I'm talking about USA and Canada as well. Finland's that good.
Yeah, they are. With Finland, do you expect them to give them a run for USA and Canada's money? They gave USA a run for their money. Sweden also did give Canada a run for their money.
So Darren Pang is asking Matthew Tkachuk in Italy what he's gone through, some of the injuries. We're going to get more of that information tomorrow. I've been waiting for this now. Finally, Jonah Gadjevich.
Does he have that same smile that he got in Game 3? He's enjoying his moment. Formerly with the San Jose Sharks, Bill Zito identified him and signed him to a nice deal.
Let's be honest. Again, that Game 3 moment, I understand 6-1. Those fights that look, that as you talk about it, that type of thing for Gadjevich, he had some crazy looks in his eyes, but that's the type of dude you want in your corner.
The whole shtick with all of that. The tap from Boquist, and then Nico Sturm, who's now a 2-time champion after winning with the Avalanche 3 years prior.
It's just a great group of characters alongside and headline for Paul Maurice. I mean, we talked about it at length, especially from the first and second intermission, Alec. And I know it's tough to say now that you could make 4 straight runs to the Stanley Cup Finals, but the way that this team is, essentially, a lot of these guys in their prime, with the experience that they have, I mean, no doubt, let's be honest, they're going to be a playoff team next year. And without any injuries withstanding that are major, they have a chance to do damage again. Like, as good as Tampa was, boy, oh boy, they didn't really put up much of a fight. So I'm not sure, even for as tough as the Atlantic is Bill Zito now gets to put the trophy over his head. He's real well deserved of that. But I don't even know who's going to get in their way.
Who knows? Perhaps the closest that we could see is Toronto, but we have yet to know what Toronto's offseason plan is going to look like. We think Tavares is going to come back on a hometown discount, but I don't know if they're going to get Sam Bennett, but if I'm the Leafs, Ryan Donato. That's the name I'm throwing out there. And here's Paul Maurice with a second Stanley Cup in as many years. You got to feel happy for him. Not just that he's a former Carolina Hurricane, but that he has mastered the art of coaching in the NHL.
Best coach in the NHL. I know it doesn't go out on a limb, but Paul Maurice is that guy. He's almost at the point now where he's going to pass John Cooper, in my opinion, as far as top 3. Paul Maurice, well deserved. And again, if you're a journalist, again, that's what I went to school for, but I'll say this for anyone that likes that sort of it. My story's doing quotes. Paul Maurice is the very best at telling you like it is. You got to love that.
Yes. Of course. We have yet to have the photos and the festivities. Of course, there are other players who are being interviewed by their country's media teams. Of course, they're Finnish media teams here doing the interviews. But Paul Maurice and company, they can think about celebrating. Perhaps going for another round at the elbow room like they did last year.
They're going to have some fun. And I imagine, again, there's not going to be a lot that they have to do going into next year. So what you see from the Panthers is primarily what you're going to get going into next season. And again, you kind of wonder what the goal is for all these teams. Did we accomplish everything that we possibly could? And it's not unfair of me to say that this team probably should be doing it again. Alec, I would have to think, and I said this at the time with Cooper when we first started in 2022 at the Avalanche. I asked him, he goes, John, admittedly, I don't know if they're going to win it again next year. It might take several years, but for the Florida Panthers, they really could probably get 2 more with this group. Maybe not all in a row, but if I have to bet today, gentlemen, I would still say with this core, I think that they're going to at least get 1 more. They're going to end up with 3.
You know, I don't disagree with you there. I think they can get a 3rd Stanley Cup. Doesn't have to be next year. But right. For that to happen, I feel you're going to have to search out the market, probably the trade market if you want to get a goaltender, because Bobrovsky is on his final years in the NHL. At some point, he's going to retire. So you want to get someone at the trade market, someone who wants to play for this team. Either that, or if you're wanting to wait for the perfect opportunity to get a goaltender in free agency, you jump on that opportunity.
You know what? I was going to say this as a sycophant, because if I'm Jim Nill and you thought about it for Peter DeBoer, about throwing his goaltender under the bus, hey, Jake, let's go to South Florida.
Or you know what? Because I think, look, even though they threw him under the bus, I don't think it's not realistic to me that Potter is going to do that. So
we got our photo, gentlemen.
So, hey, John, you want to go ahead and win one?
You gotta think about that for John Gibson. We've been saying his name forever. At some point, he's got to be traded.
Yeah, I brought his name up with the trade discussions with the Oilers. And if not him, Ian did bring up Thatcher Demko. Either or. Both of these teams could be eyeing those two names.
Yeah. Or, look, if you wanted a relatively young goaltender, I mean, that's not going to happen. I can tell you exactly what would happen if someone called about Jordan Binnington. Ring, 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 ring. Hello? Hi. Hey, Doug. Hey, what would be the asking price for Jordan Binnington? Click.
Exactly.
Click. Wait. Ring, ring. Okay. Sorry. What about Joel Hofer? Click.
Boys, we got to do this again. It was a lot of fun. And we got to see the Florida Panthers win one more. We'll see what happens next season as far as your NHL cap off and then the start of everything again in September and October. I know we'll probably meet up for free agency frenzy one more time and all that too. But I just want to say thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much, John. Can't wait to do it next season, and we'll wait to see what the free agency period holds.
Absolutely. And Alec and I will be alongside for Olympics again next year, so big things on the horizon. Ian, thank you for always joining us. I appreciate everything that you bring in. I know we're going to talk again soon.
Absolutely. And hey, I know our schedules are packed, and setting up this space, especially with Cooper, would be difficult. But I still think we need to go. I still feel like we need to scrape at the bottom of the barrel and talk about the teams that fell way short of the mark.
I do think that we can do that. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I talk with Alec and you as far as what's available. And we could probably set up a date during the off season. I wouldn't mind strapping this fight because it could be fun.
All right.
Well, we'll see you.
All right. Peace out, gentlemen.